Hello, everyone. This is Andres Restart. I am joined by my good friend Brandon. And tonight, as usual, we are talking about Nintendo. We actually got a surprising amount of Switch 2 news between last week and now. And so we're going to be talking about this Switch 2 news. We're going to be talking about the patents that basically confirm the mouse feature of the Joy-Con. We're going to be talking about this Q&A that came from Nintendo's earnings release that actually gives us some very interesting tidbits. And we're going to be talking about some different interviews that took place from some third-party partners that kind of could be hinting at some pretty big deal third-party games coming to Switch 2 down the road, like Monster Hunter Wilds, like maybe even Grand Theft Auto 6, hence the thumbnail for today's video. And we'll also be getting into Nintendo Direct rumors. And by rumors, maybe it's just one rumor. There are other rumors out there, but I think they're kind of garbage, so I'm not going to talk about them. But if you guys present them in the chat, I will give you my opinion, and Brandon will share his opinion. But we will be focusing on one particular rumor because we're waiting for a Direct, and one has not been announced yet. And no, we're not talking about the Switch 2 Direct. I mean, we are going to talk about the Switch 2 Direct in April, but we're also talking about a Switch 1 Direct maybe in this month of February. So there's a lot of news. There's some rumors. It's going to be a fun discussion tonight. But before we do that, Brandon, how are you? What's up? What's new?
I'm good. I am keeping a positive mental attitude.
Okay.
There's a lot of things going on in the world, not so great. But here at Nintendo, it's a pretty good time. So
yeah.
Yeah. Gotta keep a positive mindset. Focus on the good things.
We're like 50 days away from the Switch 2 Direct, the beginning of the golden era of the next golden era, the golden era or the platinum era. I don't know, but because the Switch 2 is the Switch 1 was arguably the golden era of Nintendo. So I don't know is it the continuation, but it's going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time.
Well, the golden era can be, maybe it won't be the golden era necessarily for sales if it doesn't top the Switch 1, but might be the golden era for games. And, that's more of a personal, less objective thing.
Yeah, definitely a personal thing. But I don't know. I mean, I even think there's a pretty good chance that the Switch 2 will have comparable sales to the Switch 1. It might even surpass it. Like, I think the one thing that everyone did going into the Switch 1 era, even the hardcore fans, was underestimate the potential success.
Yeah, I definitely underestimated it.
Like,
I didn't even think it would pass Wii.
The people that were saying, "Oh, maybe it'll sell like 75 million," those kinds of people were being called delusional. But the Switch has doubled that. So the Switch has doubled the delusional take. And delusional, right? Mm-hmm. And it's still going. It's still going. I think there's it's almost a foregone conclusion that Switch is going to become the best-selling console of all time across all video games, which means not only will it pass the DS in a few months at 154 million, but it will pass the PS2 at 160. So the Switch is very close. I don't think it's going to do it in a whole year. I think it's going to take a little bit longer, but it's probably almost certainly going to get there, it looks like. Joy CJ in the chat, thank you for letting me know that everything looks and sounds okay before I even asked. I appreciate you, because sometimes I forget. Thank you. Very much appreciated. Hello to Super Gaming. Hello there, Pokemon fan. Hello there, Connor, Elvin Ryan, Nature and Music Wyatt, Having Hope, Lek, hello there. Cold Brew, hello. TAF official YouTube channel, hello there to you. Anthony Nelson, BM52, Brock Sampson, JRL Tolkien. Good evening to you all. Francois Duval at me. And guys, there's been a February Direct later in the month. There's still hope. There's been plenty of February Directs later in the month. There is still hope. That is correct. Definitely. So, you know what? Well, let me address a couple things here. Velociraptor Go says hello. I just got and beat Resident Evil 2 on GameCube. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. Ooh, Resident Evil 2 on GameCube, nice.
Nice.
Super Gaming
Never
Acid. The
played
only
that.
real reason I wanted Nintendo Direct this month in February personally is because I want to see Metroid Prime 2 and 3 shadow dropped. That's fair. Yeah. The real Sabo in the chat. I honestly thought you were using an AI voice for a moment, as a lot of other people are using similar voices. That blows my mind. I would never.
Yeah.
That just blows my mind.
How dare you accuse us of such a heinous act?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I don't go on camera for my edited videos.
Right.
There is a cadence that I think myself and many other creators try to hit.
Yeah, you got like your video voice or
there's
your
a
camera
video
voice or there's
exactly.
Yeah,
it's a presentational voice, or a theatrical voice, or some kind of combination of the two. But that is, to me, it's such a far cry from what AI is, right? So it terrifies me. But it's not the first time I've heard someone say that. But let's talk about this Nintendo Direct situation first. Then we'll dive into all the Switch 2 news. So, PH Brazil. He's a journalist from Brazil. That's also his alias, right? He has reported more than once that there will be a Direct in February, and
Right.
only just a couple days ago, he's tripled down on this Direct happening in February. This is the same person who said there would be Directs, plural, more than one in the month of August, on something that was unprecedented to say, but it actually happened. And this isn't the first time he's been right about Directs happening. So I don't really think we should distrust PH Brazil. However, it wouldn't be the first time that he has heard about a timing of a Direct and then have been off. But when he has been off, he has updated on that. Like, for example, shortly after, this goes back basically about a year ago, after he had accurately reported about a Direct happening in February, the partner we got, right? There was talk about when we might see the Switch 2 reveal, and he had heard something about a Direct in April. And when he said it, he didn't say it with 100% committal, right? But as we got closer to April, he's like, hey guys, doesn't look like this is happening in April.
I do recall that, yeah.
But because he initially said April, and then it didn't happen, some people are like, oh, well, see, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But here's the thing. Sometimes plans change. Sometimes things can be heard. And he went back before we got to that point and said, hey, it doesn't look like that's happening anymore. And so there's a more significant history of PH Brazil reporting on things that actually do happen. So given that he hasn't gone back on a February Direct happening yet, I think that there's a decent amount of hope from this. I guess we could call it a rumor, right? It's a report, but I guess it's kind of one the same in this scenario.
Yeah.
But then we also still have the historical precedent of there being a Direct in February every single year of Switch going back to, 2019 was the last time there was a February. 2018 was when the last time we did not have a February Direct. We had a Direct Mini in January and a big General in March. So we'd have to go back that far. And so you could look at the history and say, okay, well, there's got to be a Direct, right? Well, patterns break, right? It doesn't go on forever. And when we factor in the scenario of us transitioning over to a new generation,
right? This isn't exactly a normal year,
right? Maybe the typical February Direct would not happen. Which, interestingly, when we do go back to 2018, that was the first full year of Switch 1, so it was in the middle of this transition. So, yeah, perhaps there won't be a February Direct just because we're in the middle of the Switch 2 transition. We do know about the big April Direct on April 2nd. But we still need to learn about games for Switch 1. Nintendo's not going to just
I mean, in
forget about
2018,
it.
we still got the January Direct, and so
Right, there
still
was
got a
still
Direct
things.
early in the first 2 months.
Yes. There's a need to make announcements for Switch 1. Personally, I do not think we're going to get a big general. I think it's going to be a partner showcase or a direct mini, something like that, and some form of a Twitter direct where there's some social media announcements as well. Some combination of whatever those things are, not a big general, because we do have the big April direct, and I do think things are winding down for Switch 1. But there still needs to be things announced for Switch 1, both first party and third party. Another rumor, actually, it's coming from a pretty credible place, is Nate the Hate.
Right.
He's already talked about Kirby Planet Robobot, but interestingly, more
yes.
recently on Twitter, he was asked about when this might be coming out, and he said specifically 2025. Now, that was probably a relatively safe assumption, but it's good to have some clarity there. And what I think is even more interesting about this is that when you look at the history of mainline Kirby releases, this would even include remasters, several of them. They tend to come out either February or March. Now, given how this hasn't been announced yet, I don't think it's coming out February or March unless it's like shadow dropped.
Could be shadow dropped, I guess.
Could be.
Seems unlikely.
Right. My take is that it's still likely to be an early year release. So it's an announcement that I think we should get soon.
Yeah. If it's going to be, relatively early, then I mean, we have to get it soon.
It's going to be early, that I'm simply like suggesting that based off the history of mainline Kirby releases.
Right.
This is a transition year where things may be handled differently.
Yeah. Still kind of expect it to be relatively early on. I still do expect to see it this month. I don't know. I'm just expecting a direct. I just am. I have been for a while, and yeah. So I expect to see it there.
Yeah.
Even if it's not coming out like super soon, I still kind of expect to see it.
Yeah, I mean, let's for moving past the Kirby rumor or just the rumor of there being a direct. Let's forgetting about the rumors for a second. The only game we have a specific date for moving forward is Xenoblade Chronicles X, March 24th, I believe.
Yeah.
Prime 4 and Pokemon
I thought it was the
ZA,
20th.
You might be right. It's a Thursday. It's late March.
I could very well be wrong.
It doesn't matter. It's the same difference. Okay, apparently when you search Xenoblade X Definitive Edition release date, you get May 29th, 2020, which is not true. That's Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition.
I was about to say, that's no version of Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Yeah, Google has failed me. It's March 20th. You were correct.
Yeah, I think they moved the date up or something.
I don't think they moved it. I think it was always in. I was off by 4 days.
I don't know.
No, I think that was always the date. Publicly.
I do know that the file size, they lowered the predicted
Yeah, it's
file
like
size.
half the size of the Wii U version, right?
Yeah, initially they had listed it at 15 gigabytes, and then they dropped that down to 13.4, and then the Wii U version was a little over 22 gigabytes.
Yeah.
I have a suspicion a lot of that is due to the fact that even if you had the physical edition, there was stuff you had to download for like faster loading and stuff. And I imagine that those packs, which were I think nearly the difference between the two versions in terms of size, you probably just don't need that extra data anymore for the Switch, I assume. But they also have gotta have done some of their wizardry as well, because there's extra DLC in this version too. So,
this is a bigger
miracle,
game, right? It's a game that has better visuals, right? With more content, and it's half the size, give or take a couple gigabytes. But that's remarkable. But it goes to show just how much more things have been streamlined and how much more efficient Nintendo devs have gotten over the last 10 years. So
Jesus Christ, yeah, it is
right,
10 years.
right. It has been 10 years because Xenoblade X initially came out
2015.
2015. Right, exactly. I think it was later 2015, but so like 9.5.
Yeah,
But
it was pretty late
know,
in the year, I
it's
believe.
been it's impressive. But going beyond Xenoblade Chronicles X, right? We don't have any other slated games from Nintendo. And
Right.
there's not even
None
that
that are
many
dated.
third-party ones. Right, that's what yeah, exactly. We have Prime 4 and Legends ZA for 2025, but not a specific date.
Yeah.
And there's not really much third-party games either that have specific dates for Switch 1. And no, this does not mean that Switch 1 is completely dead. It doesn't make sense to do that. The Switch 1 is still selling relatively well. They're going to want to continue to push that. I think the best example is how things went down with the 3DS. The 3DS was still getting published Nintendo titles in 2017, the year Switch came out at the beginning of the year, in 2018, and even a few in 2019. I expect something very similar for Switch 1. I remember someone said a few days ago in a video that I made that it wouldn't comparing Wii be better than 3DS, and I think the answer is hard no, because Wii lost all momentum before the Wii even came out.
Yeah.
The Wii was dead basically before Skyward Sword came out in 2011. And like basically 2010 was the last time the Wii was like pretty lucrative, and then they had a pretty big drought in 2011 where sales were trending downwards. That might be one of the reasons why Skyward Sword only sold as well as it did. And then after Skyward Sword came out, they had a whole other year of like nothing, and the Wii U came out at the end of 2012, and it was a piss poor launch. Which was even stranger when you kind of think about the drop we went through.
Yeah, like what were they doing?
I don't know. I guess you chalk it up to struggles of adapting to HD development.
Yeah, fair.
But the point, and maybe also they thought they could maintain momentum better with the Wii, but I guess they didn't realize that it was truly a lightning in a bottle situation.
Yeah, smartphones kind of ruined everything for them.
A lot of stuff going on there, but the point is the Wii only had momentum for basically 4 years. The Switch has had consistent momentum for 8 years, and so did the 3DS basically, right? So actually the best comp is the 3DS. It's also more recent as well. Also, the Switch isn't just a home console. It is a hybrid, and some may argue it's more of a handheld than a home console. I'm just going to say it's both. So anyways, yeah, I think looking at the 3DS is the best way to sort of get somewhat of a picture on how Nintendo's going to handle this transition, which basically means there are going to be some games coming to Switch 1 as well. So there's got to be some series of announcements happening soon.
I mean, you gotta imagine that the Switch 1 will get at least as much support as the 3DS did, considering just how much more of a seller it has been, and how many people are still playing on it.
Yeah.
Like, there's more people currently playing Switch every year than there ever were 3DSs sold.
I think a number we got, we touched on this last week because we had gone the sales data already last Tuesday.
It's like 124 million active users or something crazy.
I was gonna say 129, but it's somewhere in that range. Considering that there's 150 million Switches sold, the fact that there's somewhere in the 120s, almost 130s of people who have actively played their Switch in the last year, to me is mind-boggling. That is crazy. Insane. Which goes to show they absolutely should be supporting this thing moving forward. And, while I've made the comparison to 3DS, there is a very key difference. And that's that the Switch is going to be backwards compatible with the Switch 2. And this actually ties into another rumor that popped up in the last week, and that's about a 2D Metroid game being in development and maybe being slated for 2026. So this would be made by Mercury Steam. It's coming from Nash Weedle. It's also a fairly predictable rumor because Mercury Steam made Samus Returns in 2017 when Switch came out, but for 3DS. They made Metroid Dread in 2021. So it does make sense that, another one should be about ready. But what's interesting about this scenario, let's assume it's true, right? We're getting another 2D Metroid after Prime 4 comes out, right? Right. Um, it coming out early on into the Switch 2 era is fine, even if it's a Switch 1 title, because of backwards compatibility. It's not going to be a
Yeah.
Samus Return situation where there is this awesome 2D Metroid remake on 3DS in 2017, 6 months into the Switch's life cycle. Like, I bought
Yeah.
Samus Returns for my 3DS back then because I'm a hardcore Metroid fan, but there was a common sentiment back then, and it was, why is this on 3DS? We want to play it on Switch.
Yep. I would have played it if it was on Switch. I did not play it.
Right. This time around, though, when this 2D Metroid comes out, let's say it comes out in 2026, and a lot of us already have our Switch 2s, it may be a Switch 1 title. So if you haven't moved over to Switch 2, that's fine. You can still enjoy it. But thanks to backwards compatibility, we're not going to be like, man, I really wish, I could play this on my Switch 2, because we will be able to play it on our Switch 2. And it might even have somewhat of a visual enhancement. So,
Yeah, I mean, any game that launches for Switch 1 when the Switch 2 is out, I would assume maybe even has to. Like, there have been some times where, like, platform holders have dictated, like, how you can treat games that are coming out on their platforms. So Nintendo could even say, like, you have to do some sort of increase for Switch 2. You can't just be like, well, it's backwards compatible if it releases, like, when the Switch 2 is actually out. I could see something like that, where we have to get, like, at least a resolution increase or something.
At least, right? You would think. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't assume that every single game, but I just kind of think, like, if it's going to be a new 2D Metroid game,
Why not support that, though?
right?
It'd be so easy to do.
It would be easy.
Just like a resolution bump, or you're not like actually adding any assets or anything crazy.
Most PlayStation games work that way, right?
Click a few boxes to up the draw distance in certain games or something. Like you don't have to do anything wild.
There's a lot of games I play on my PS5 that were
QA testing. That's about it.
And it always asks me, which version do I download? Do I download the PS5 or the PS4 version? I always download the PS5 version, right? But I guess that it's technically a little bit better.
If you play, actually, the PS4 version of Elden Ring runs a lot better than the PS5 version. It's pretty much a locked 60 FPS, whereas none of the current gen versions are 60 FPS locked. The only way to play Elden Ring 60 FPS locked is to download the PS4 version.
I did not
on
know
PS5.
That. I did not know that.
Not even the PS5 Pro runs it at 60 FPS locked.
It's weird. Yeah. That is weird.
Very heavy game. Mostly the CPU side, I think.
Anyway, I guess in the case of, like, Switch, right? I would hope that games will run well. You won't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But getting back to the point, right? Backwards compatibility is going to make the situation better, but I still think it's probably relatively safe to expect that there are going to be Switch 1 games coming, which basically means there needs to be announcements pretty soon, because there's, like, nothing left. And let's entertain this hypothetical for a moment here, though. Let's say we do not get a Switch 1 Direct.
We're about to see a lot of Twitter drops.
I think there'd be some social media announcements. It may mean that we're not going to be getting the consistent, like, Switch 1 title from Nintendo per month anymore. We already don't have anything for February right now, right? It's one of the reasons why I kind of want to see, like, more than a partner, like a Direct Mini, at least a Direct Mini, because I want to see some first-party announcements, like a Shadow Drop announcement, maybe Metroid Prime 2 remastered, for example. I would like to see that. And you don't necessarily need like a Direct to do that. Like they could have a partner, and then, like, next week they could be like, hey, guess what? Like, they could announce a partner Direct tomorrow. They could even Shadow Drop a partner Direct on Thursday, and it wouldn't be a big deal. But next week they could be like, hey, Metroid Prime 2 remastered is available on the eShop. They could just do that on Twitter. Like, they could totally get away with that.
I would hope they wouldn't, though.
Me too, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, they shall drop the Switch 2 reveal.
Yeah.
You know, like I think at this point, like Nintendo
The
could do
Switch
whatever
2
they want.
reveal is kind of like, no matter how they showed it, people were gonna see that.
Yeah, yeah.
Metroid is like Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remaster is not a big enough deal where it like just gets out to everybody automatically.
No, but Nintendo does randomly shadow drop things that aren't that
Yeah,
big of a deal.
no, they do.
So,
I'm
you
just
know,
saying I wouldn't prefer that. I'm not saying they couldn't do
right.
that. They
I
definitely could.
agree with you. I'm with you. I want it to have more attention and advertising. I was not happy with. I mean, I was happy they shadow dropped Prime 1 Remastered when it happened in
Yeah.
2023 because I was like, great, I can play this immediately.
Well,
But
at
I
least
was
that was
also
in a direct.
disappointed. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a direct, but I kind of felt like it needed a little bit more of a build up,
It
which it
did.
didn't get. Um,
It was hype
yeah,
for like the hardcore fans, but it didn't get the wide reach it needed.
right. But continuing to entertain this thought of there not being a direct this month for Switch 1, I think it might basically mean there's just not going to be directs for Switch 1. Like maybe they could just save it for March. I suppose they could. Like that's not
Yeah.
totally off the table. But I definitely don't think it'd be a general. Like I already think it being a general now is unlikely. I think it would probably just be a partner with just social media announcements happening from Nintendo.
Hmm.
But there
Possibly.
is an interesting positive spin if there is not a Switch 1 Direct at all.
Okay.
All right, so hear me out. If there's not a Switch 1 Direct at all, then that, in my mind at least, pretty much guarantees that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is being saved for the Switch 2 Direct. Like,
yeah. For sure.
I mean, I would argue the fact that they haven't shown anything else on it beyond that one trailer by this point already kind of hard implies that it's going to be part of the Switch 2 Direct. But if there's literally
Feels that
no
way.
Direct for Switch 1 before April 2nd, I think that's a really strong sign of that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because, I mean, at this point, it doesn't seem like it's going to come out before the Switch 2, right? Like, there's so few months, like, for that to even be possible. It kind of seems doubtful that either Legend ZA or Prime 4 will come out before the Switch 2
I mean, I already
launches.
think both Legends Z and Prime 4 are getting some version, somewhat of an enhancement on Switch 2.
It seems likely.
The Legends ZA one I wasn't going to believe until we got the leak of it from the Terra leak, which is like a real leak. There is something having to do with Legends ZA and Switch 2. Does it come to market? We're not sure, but it does exist.
My point being, though, that would mean that it would probably come up in that direct, whether it has like a major cross-gen version or not. I feel like,
just having it as a part of the sizzle reel, just
Yeah.
like showing
it would
Pokemon
need to
playable
come
on
up.
Switch 2 is just a big thing to like
Yeah.
market. I agree. There's another positive spin though beyond just Prime 4 cross-gen. It's literally the Switch 2 launching soon, which you and I already believe, right? I think a lot of us believe it, right? Like I think some of you have. I'm assuming a lot of you have seen my theory that Switch 2 is launching May 15th, which is at the end of the day a theory, right? But given that we don't have any specific dates beyond Xenoblade for Switch 1 titles, and if there's not a Switch 1 Direct, then there's like nothing else Nintendo related coming out anytime soon. And so if we're having the Direct in April 2nd, it kind of suggests that, all right, well, maybe there is only like a new generation coming out in May, like mid-May. Like if there's nothing else announced to be coming out within the next like 2 to 3 months, I think that also hard implies that, well, they need to have something really big coming out around May. So that's another positive spin if there's not a Switch 1 Direct. And by the way, just for the record, these two positive spins about Switch 2 coming out in May and Metroid Prime 4 being cross-gen, I think both are happening whether we get a Switch 1 Direct or not. I just think that if there's not a Switch 1 Direct in February or March, it just makes those possibilities more likely.
True. But I do think, even if the Switch 2 does come out in May, that April maybe should get something. But I guess
Well,
it
the thing
doesn't
is, in
necessarily have
April,
to.
we have the Switch 2 experience events happening
Yeah,
throughout. We
this is
have the
all the
big direct.
events.
That's when pre-orders open up. Like, there's gonna be so much talk and advertising for Switch 2 in April. I don't see how there's really any room to talk about Switch 1
True.
during that April. Like, really at all. Not realistically. Not in a way that'll be effective. So it's kind of like this month. I mean, you could do
So
March.
April kind of.
But February really makes the most sense.
Well, I'm talking about for game releases.
Oh,
Like I think a game needs to release in April.
I don't know, man. Maybe or not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. I mean, I didn't even think about that.
Because
But
that's how
yeah.
I thought you were spinning it at first. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I could see that. Like Nintendo fans would be fine because there'd be so much happening. But no,
well,
I still feel
the
like
Kirby
there
game
still
comes
needs
out
to
in
be a
April.
game.
Maybe the Kirby game comes out in April.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Because Switch is backwards compatible. It's not like people would like be upset about it, and also.
No.
Not many hardcore Kirby fans are going to be Switch 2 day oneers. Like there's Kirby. Listen, I'm sure some people in this chat are going to buy Kirby Planet Robot day one and buy Switch 2 day one. But I'm just saying that Kirby tends to appeal to more of a casual audience, and typically it's the more core audience that buys into a next gen console day one. So basically what I'm saying is that Nintendo's better off putting out Kirby in April than Fire Emblem.
Yeah, I guess so. I can see that.
I'd be surprised if Fire Emblem was coming out in April.
I'm
assuming Switch was coming out in May. If Switch was coming out in June, then sure.
I think.
I mean, even then, though, because of the media blowout of Switch 2 in April, like I even then, I'm like, maybe you don't put out Fire Emblem in April. We're already in February, by the way.
Better.
Like, I think it's gonna be Kirby. So
Kirby's a good option, though.
Yeah, or like something like Tamagotchi Life or something.
Yeah.
A more casual centric kind of game is basically what I'm getting at. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles X is coming out March 20th. That's a pretty hardcore centric game. So it's not like we're gonna be like really like like we would have just gone a giant open world RPG.
That's very fair.
And the Switch 2 is coming out literally in May. Like, what Nintendo fans going to be complaining about? Man, we didn't get enough hardcore games in April.
Very true.
Also, Kirby Planet Robot, I think, is a really interesting. While it is a Kirby game that has a casual appeal, it is also it's like one of the few Kirby games that like most of the core audience is like, yeah, that's a really good Kirby game.
Yeah, it's a very appealing game. It has a lot of cool mechanics that you just look at and you're like, oh, I haven't seen this in Kirby before. This looks very intriguing. It's not like when I saw the last remaster that came out. I forget what it was even called. It looked very generic. The one that had the extra DLC like story campaign in it. Came out like a year or two ago.
You lost me. What are you asking
Kirby
about?
Remaster, the name of it.
Return to Dreamland Deluxe?
Yes.
With Magalore's Quest?
Yeah, that one I was kind of like, okay, this looks like kind of just standard Kirby. But I feel like, you see Planet Robobot, it looks a lot more unique.
I hope it gets a little bit of expansion content. If they did it for Return to Dreamland Deluxe, the precedent has been set. So
it doesn't really matter to me too much because I haven't played the game yet.
I get it.
I've played a little bit of it, but not all the way through. Not even close. So it's mostly new for me.
Well, let's get to the chat. Armand just asked, "Hi, just got into the stream. Are you guys ending soon?" No, we are not ending soon. We're still pretty
Just
early
getting
on. We
started,
just finished
mostly.
our first topic. We basically just wrapped up on Switch One, Nintendo Direct rumor stuff. We touched a little bit on a 2D Metroid rumor, and now we're going to be getting into all the Switch 2 news analysis. But before then, I want to kind of check in with you guys in the chat and answer some of your questions and theories. Captain Doge, what's up, Andre? Super random, but started working out recently. Would be epic to build, and would be epic to build your physique. Yeah, I'm a work in progress.
Lately.
This shoulder is wrecked. I cannot put much weight on it. I'm trying to rehab it, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, I usually exercise a lot, like, consistently, but lately I got into a slump for like a month and a half, so I'm having to get back into it, and my arms were not very appreciative of the fact that they did basically no work for a month and a half.
You got to ramp up slowly too, right?
Yeah, I went back into it trying to do more than when I was doing before. That didn't go well.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons
I did it, but then my arms died for 3 days.
Yeah. For me, like the reason this shoulder is messed up in part is probably because I was getting pretty competitive with like lifting higher and higher weights, and I was feeling pain, and I kept pushing and pushing.
See, lately I've been going for really, really good form on lower weights.
That's healthier.
I've actually been using only 20 pounds right now, but I'm doing like slower, very controlled, and then doing more reps, and then a lot of sets.
If you feel the burn, I mean, that's healthier. So, and then over time, go a little higher and higher.
I just feel like I don't want to put too much weight on my joints and stuff. So I really want to build up that muscle, make sure I'm getting perfect form, make sure I'm not putting any extra weight on anything, Really, I don't want to be like,
me.
Some of these, well, yes, I guess. But some people, the bodybuilders and stuff, they get to where they're in their like late 30s, early 40s, and they're just like old men in comparison to like normal people because their bodies are just destroyed at that point.
Oh yeah, you want to be careful. I mean, like going to the gym and working out like is good for your health, but also you can damage yourself if you do it irresponsibly.
Yeah.
Continuing with the chat here. First super chat of the night. We do have a goal. If we get 10 super chats, I will get Ruby to dance. My cat. Dance. We'll see if we hit the goal. We're only 1 of 10 so far, and we got about an hour left, so I don't know if we're gonna hit it, but we'll see. Anyways, shout out to Netweed09 for the first super chat of the night. So yeah, the dual launch of Beyond plus Mario Kart 9 is very likely. Dude, if we get Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and Mario Kart 9, personally, while I know there's going to be some debate about if it's a good fit, if Doom Dark Ages gets in the way, or blah, 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 this and that, or what have you, personally, that would be the ultimate 1-2 punch to start off the Switch 2. So I would be excited about it. I'd be thrilled. So, fingers crossed. And you know what's crazy? Like, we're here talking about, oh man, there might not be like enough like hardcore Switch 1 games, but like if Metroid Prime 4 comes out May, because that's when Switch 2 comes out, right? Guess that's Metroid Prime 4 also comes out for Switch 1 at the same time.
Right.
Like you can still buy it for Switch. If you don't have a Switch 2 yet, you can still buy it for Switch 1. And there you go. Like Doom Dark Ages is probably not going to come out for Switch 1. So like for those that are like kind of like worried, like maybe Prime 4 on Switch 2 isn't the best idea because like there's these other things you can buy on Switch 2. It still comes out for Switch 1. Like, so everyone who's not ready to move on yet is going to want to get that game on Switch 1, right? And then it can still be made available early on for Switch 2. And there's just the effect of if a game is made available early on, it tends to sell. So like, it could be the best of both worlds. I'm totally okay with them waiting a few months into the Switch 2 era, waiting for the right time for Prime 4 to come out if it's not the launch. But just me personally, I would be so into both Prime 4 and Mario Kart 9 day one. It would be the perfect combination.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Having Hope has been a member for 24 months. Can't
Nice.
believe I've been a member for 2 years now. Keep up the great work. Keep up being a great member, Having Hope.
That's
and
crazy.
Thank you.
2
I will do my
years, wow.
best. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't
Boo
realize
Mini
we've had members for that long.
has gifted a membership, and I believe my friend Cameron Gamebird Classic was the winner of said
Oh,
membership. Congratulations.
nice.
And Boo Mini, thank you for being the ultimate gifting of memberships MVP. Also, speaking of being members for a long while, Nate Esquega, been a member for quite a bit, 37 months, 33 years.
Jeez.
Yet it feels like you started memberships yesterday. To Brandon's point, has it really
3
been that long?
years?
Well, apparently it's been over 3 years. So,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
there you go. Yeah, it's crazy.
I remember when we were talking about whether we should do memberships or not.
Yeah, time's flying, bro. What's wild is that we're already in 2025. We go back 2 years ago. We were like, oh man, when are they gonna show Tears of the Kingdom off? When are they gonna do it? Right? Like, I think we had just gotten February 8th Nintendo Direct. So we had seen that second trailer. We were like, hey, was that really enough? You know? And so
It feels like
that
yesterday.
that was
somehow.
2 years
and
ago,
forever
right?
ago.
And 2 years ago was when I started trying to do like YouTube like full time. And things kind of popped off a little bit. Hopefully things pop off more really soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how quickly time has passed. And
Time
2
is
years. What's crazy is that
thing.
the next 2 years are going to be wild. Like there's going to be so much going on. Time's going to fly again, and we're going to be here. Probably not here. I'm probably going to be in a different place 2 years from now, for sure. Like we're going to sell this house. But yeah, like 2 years from now,
we're gonna be thinking about like the next Zelda game.
Man, we've been doing memberships for 5 years now. We were just talking about it the other day. Like things are gonna fly, and yes, by 2 years from now, we will probably have at least seen footage for the next Zelda game.
That's likely, yeah.
We will have already 100% a Ocarina of Time remake.
True.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
3D Mario, Metroid Prime 4 will have been a distant memory.
I will have clocked 200 hours each into all those games with 100%. Yeah, it's gonna be wild. Oh boy. Boo Mini Adspin points out we need super chats. We need 10 super chats. Then we will get Ruby to dance. We need to get 9 more. Can it happen? We'll see. Steve Emblem. Will Legends ZA play a part in the Switch 2 release? I think so. I was touching on it earlier. We do have from the Terra leak that there is a super version of Legends ZA, and there's a super Gaia as well. So the way it works is there's code names, right? So the code name for Generation 10 of Pokemon to come out after Legends ZA, it's Gaia. And Super Gaia implies the Switch 2 version for Generation 10. And which also implies there's a Switch 1 version of Generation 10, but also
which isn't too surprising.
There is a Super Ikaku. Ikaku is the code name for Legends ZA, so that means there may also be a Switch 2 version for Legends ZA. And so yes, I believe the Terra leak, right? I think it makes sense. I made a point. Was it last week? Maybe, but I made a point that by looking at Switch 2 sales numbers. It's clear that software sales are trending downwards, and so when you put out a game now, its potential is not as great as it was 2 years ago. Every year that we go further into, sales potential diminishes, right? So you look at games like Pokemon Legends ZA, like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, games that probably took a decent amount of resources to put together, right? Both games we've waited longer than expected. Which it's funny saying that for Pokemon because they normally don't take their time, but they are taking their time with this one. They waited another year to put this game out. And so when you think about it from that perspective, when you think about how long they waited to put out Prime 4, and with every passing year at this stage of the game, software sales are diminishing, I just think from a financial business perspective, it would be a mistake to not have some sort of version catered to Switch 2. Because that way you could still benefit from the large install base of Switch 1, even if interest is waning, because it's still pretty strong, and also jump onto the bandwagon of Switch 2. And as people buy Switch 2, people will pick up those games and they will sell for years to come.
That's why I kind of feel like
So.
Nintendo should, and maybe even they might do this, where they kind of demand that developers make a better version, because I feel like that brings people who are hardcore Pokemon fans who want the best version of Pokemon. They're like, well, I gotta buy a Switch 2 to play the best version of Legend ZA. Like, I gotta do it. Like, I think, or I gotta buy it for the best version of Prime 4. I've been waiting, so many years. I'm a hardcore Metroid fan. I gotta jump in to get Prime 4 to play the best version of that game. I feel like that makes sense with so many different series. Just bring people over, be like, I gotta play the best version.
So I'm with you, but I just want to say that specifically with Pokemon, with Metroid, I'm not concerned because Retro Studios always puts out high quality 60 FPS games regardless, right? So like there's still going to be a smooth running 60 FPS version of Prime 4 on Switch 1, whatever
Switch 1 version is going
enhances
to be a good version.
Yeah, like Prime 4, if it looks better, I expect it to, and like that's gonna be great. But regardless, the Switch 1 version is still gonna look great. We've already seen it look great with the first trailer, and that's gonna stay at 60 FPS. That's not going to change. If it does, that would be completely out of Retro Studios' like character and history. Yeah. Pokemon, on the other hand, with Game Freak, it's a little bit of a different scenario. I think right now there's a Nintendo Pokemon quality image challenge. After Scarlet and Violet, yes, the sales are strong, but I also think, especially because Nintendo had to put out a statement on it, the quality in which it came out really calls into question the quality that we come to expect from Pokemon games and also in turn Nintendo games. And so I think Nintendo is like, hey, we got to step in here. This is not
makes the Switch look bad too.
People
are
does,
like, oh, this thing's incapable. This thing's a piece of garbage.
But that's not how Nintendo wants to be seen. They want it to be seen as quality, right?
Okay.
And so we've seen Game Freak taking a year. They're taking more time here. But the point I'm getting at is that while I would love to see an improved Switch 2 version, the Switch 1 version still needs to be pretty good. They have a challenge here, is what I'm getting at, right? Like after Scarlet and Violet, they need to make sure they come back and be like, hey, look, we can do quality. We can be what Nintendo is. Now listen, I'm not trying to say that all of a sudden Game Freak games are going to be like 3D Mario quality. I'm not trying to say that, but there is a middle ground here, and they got to hit it. So regardless of what they have planned for Switch 2, the Switch 1 needs to be the baseline that needs to be running relatively well. And sure, if you want to have a 4K version on Switch 2 with some enhancements, I mean, I'm all for it, right? But the Switch 1 version, which in this case, I mean, I'm not sure which one version is going to sell better. I'm going to assume the Switch 1 version will sell better just because of when it'll come out. But both are still going to sell millions. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think they got to make sure that the Switch 1 versions still look and run well.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. And I mean, in general, if you look at something like Scarlet and Violet, if the game comes out in that kind of quality, it doesn't really matter what the Switch 2 version is, because there's no saving that. Like there's entire areas of the game that like just don't have finished art. There's just like nothing there, and it's just like really low textures and like bad amount of polygons. Like it's hard to even describe how it looks, because it literally looks worse than any. I wouldn't even say it looks as good as an N64 game. Like they didn't finish the game. You can't fix that with a Switch 2 version. It's like they have to make sure that the Switch 1 version is at least competent to have a baseline to upgrade with the Switch 2 version, because I don't think the Switch 2 version is going to have like new assets or anything. It's not going to be like made by a separate team with like all these new assets and effects and stuff. Like it's probably going to be a higher resolution, maybe a higher frame rate, and probably like better draw distance, less pop, and things like that. It's going to be all the same assets. So you need that Switch 1 version to be good and finished. Otherwise, the Switch 2 version doesn't stand a chance of looking good.
Yeah. Moving on. Velociraptor Ghost asks me, what's your favorite Capcom title? I thought about it for a little bit. I was
Hmm.
like, oh, is it Monster Hunter Rise? It's pretty good.
Played a surprisingly few amount of Capcom titles.
I love Capcom.
To be fair,
But my favorite
played some
Capcom
Resident
game
Evil.
is still Resident Evil 4. That's
Mm.
still probably one of my favorite games ever made. It's one of the games I've
It's a good
replayed
game.
more than any other. It's a perfect game. I mean, there's no such thing as perfection, but it's a masterpiece. I haven't played the remake yet. I plan to at one point or another. So yeah, right now I'm just kind of wasting my time playing Tetris 99 and doing
That's
time trials
hilarious.
in Mario Kart 8. I am still playing Mario Kart 8, which is wild. I'm also
Oh,
playing
yeah.
Rift Apart or Ratchet and Clank for my PS5. So when I
Oh,
finish
yeah.
that, maybe I'll buy Resident Evil 4. But also, Wilds is coming out this. I mean, when is it? I know it comes out this month, and there's a beta that just happened.
Well, the beta is going to be extended to this weekend.
Maybe I should
Because
do that.
the PlayStation Network being down.
Yeah, that was annoying.
I think I heard it's getting an extension into the
Yeah,
weekend. That might have
there's-
been.
There's a
last
bit. There's a
weekend. I'm not
beta
sure.
test that goes to from February 13th to 16th. So that's this
Okay,
weekend.
there we go. Cool.
Yeah, I can I get in that? I'll look into that.
I
later.
think anybody can. Well, I'm not sure.
I'll look into it later. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so Resident Evil 4 is my favorite game from Capcom. Lek, the real question discussion we need to have is what Nintendo will offer us for NSO. There's a variety of possibilities there. We've talked about like enhancements, right? We've talked about like going back to like, you know, like maybe like for example, if you're an NSO member, you can get Breath of the Wild at 4K 60
Right.
with no load times for free on Switch 2. Like they might go back and do things like that for NSO members, which I think would be a nice little positive. There is this rumor going around that is widely believed, apparently coming from credible places, supposedly. There's a little bit of flexibility there, but point is, the idea is that the secret button, the C button on the Switch 2 that they obscured in the reveal trailer, it is going to be a group chatting feature where you can screen share video feeds, and be in
yes.
group chats of up to 12 different Nintendo Switch Online members. So this would be an NSO feature. And so that would be another way to maybe expand upon NSO, right? So if you have a group chatting feature, if you have, you know, 4K enhancements for free through NSO, that's already expanding upon the content we already have for Switch 1. And then there's also this MMO game that they were testing last year, right?
Right.
When that comes out, I think that's going to be for Switch 1, but also Switch 2. And based off the functionality of it, I wouldn't be surprised if they have like the mouse controls for Switch 2 applicable to this game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a game that's for free for NSO members. Like we don't know that, right? But it's clearly a big NSO game. So
yeah,
it might be for NSO members exclusively, or at least
I think it will.
for free. Yeah, so there's all these different things, right? And then of course we can theorize, well, what about GameCube to NSO? Like that's like the classic prediction, right? And maybe so, but we still don't have analog triggers, so I'm not sure.
True, still no analog triggers, but of course they can just release another GameCube controller. Like there's so many.
There's ways around. There's ways around it all, right? If they can get Mario Sunshine to work in 3D All Stars, they can get GameCube to work for NSO. But also the thing is, GameCube is a treasure trove of HD remasters or 4K remasters they can do down the road. So Nintendo may not want to do GameCube NSO because that's their moneymaker. But maybe Xbox NSO, Dreamcast NSO, those would be
I would
fire.
hope that they would just do more kind of remakes that are a big enough deal that the original games like being on NSO wouldn't really take away from that. I mean, like honestly, even like Wind Waker HD, if Wind Waker was on NSO and Wind Waker HD also existed, like I'd still buy Wind Waker HD. I wouldn't be like, well, just play the original version. in
Yeah, I mean,
4x3 without any of the enhancements.
if they continue this trend of remasters being like significant visual reworkings, and there's even new content in there, I think you're right. They can get away with just still having GameCube, and so especially because a lot of GameCube games will probably never get a remaster remake treatment, right?
Yeah.
Like Wave Race Blue Storm will probably never
Never
get
gonna
a
happen.
remake for it, right? But we may be able to play it through NSO. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. I'd love to see that. All right, I'll talk about this last thing, and then we'll move on to the Switch 2 news. Velociraptor Ghost. Why doesn't Metroid sell? You'd think it appealed to sci-fi fans. It has everything for them. Dark planets with scary aliens, extremely good lore, a smoking hot female. Everything's there.
I don't
Good question.
really know why, because first-person shooters is a very popular genre. Space is popular. It's a very cool series. I feel like maybe it's just the hardware it's been on. Because it's mostly Prime has been on GameCube and Wii, and the GameCube didn't really sell very well in general. And then the Wii sold very well, but mainly to the casual market, not the kind of people who want to play Prime. So maybe Prime 4 on Switch with enough marketing would do well. But the remasters and different things like 2D Metroid, well, 2D Metroid is just a lot more niche, I think, in general, which is probably why it doesn't sell as well. Although it's been selling a lot better on Switch than before. But Prime Remaster, maybe just because, first off, it had like no marketing when it came out, and then it's a remaster of a very old game.
It's they put remastered in the title.
Yeah.
Like that, I think that literally hurts its ability to sell.
That's true. I'd agree with that.
You notice with most Nintendo remakes, they don't even have a title to it. They just put
it's just the title.
Yeah. I
think Prime 4 has a good chance of succeeding.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before. I totally agree. I mean, I think Prime 4 is gonna be a big deal, but I also think that this notion that Metroid doesn't sell is a little bit false. Metroid does sell. Metroid is a strong seller, but it's all about perspective. Metroid, in comparison to Wii Sports, Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, Mario, Zelda, does not sell well.
Right.
But the sales of Metroid, you can, if like, put it this way, if Sony and Microsoft had the Metroid IP, they'd be like, yeah, we got freaking Metroid, bro. Like they'd be like, I don't think people realize that this notion that Nintendo has Nintendo has like 72 different published titles that sold over at least 1 million copies on Switch.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how insane that is.
No, it's
I don't
crazy.
think people realize that selling 10 plus million is extraordinary. Like it's beyond extraordinary. Selling 2 to 3 million is actually extremely successful.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, even hitting 1 million is a lot. As you said, there's only like 72 games on Switch that have over 1 million sales. That's less than 100 games.
I think those are Nintendo games that sold them. There's that. I mean, I gotta double check. But the point is, I think sometimes when we look at other Nintendo games and we're like, man, that game sold 70 million. So that's, why can't Metroid sell 70 million? It's not that Metroid doesn't sell well. It's that those games sell obscene, right? It's like
Mario
here's another interesting comparison.
Is one of the biggest IP literally in existence in the history of ever. So,
right, like I think they just reported that like Monster Hunter Dragon Ball Sparking Zero hit 5 million after the holidays. That's a game that's available across several platforms. Dragon Ball is one of the most global IP. Sparking Zero is like a pretty well-reviewed game. It's talked about on social media, and it's only hit about 5 million. 5 million's a lot. Yeah, it's
that's a fighting game, isn't it?
It is a fighting game.
So I think that's actually really, really good numbers for a fighting game in general.
It is really good numbers.
I would say Smash though, but Smash Nintendo
It's
has
like a
Smash, and that is the
30
outlier.
million. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Smash is the best-selling fighting game of all time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
As a singular
It's
thing,
huge.
right? Yeah. And so point is, selling 2 to 3 million is good. That is good. Now it does come down to budget, right? Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, probably a pretty expensive budget. So 2 to 3 million might be a little underwhelming for Prime 4. So the expectation
it
may
probably
be that
has
it
a
sells way
big
better than
budget,
that.
maybe compared to like the previous trilogy, but I don't expect that the game had like a massive budget with the original team, and like that adds on to it. But I also don't think Retro Studios is a team that costs like tons and tons and tons of money. So I don't think that the budget is going to be, say, even anywhere. I doubt it would be even a third of the budget of something like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. But it probably does have, like, maybe 50% or even 100% more of the budget that of, like, Prime 1, 2, or 3 did. I don't think it's something that has this like absolutely stratospheric budget, even for Nintendo titles, which don't have huge budgets in general.
I think for a Nintendo title, it does have a very high budget.
I think it is a relatively high budget, but I don't think it's going to be something where it's like, I think if it sells a few million, it will make money.
It's not like Sony hemorrhaging money, budget, right?
Yeah.
Just because. But it is something that Nintendo has clearly invested a lot into. We've seen the kind of talent they've been hiring over the years. It's all, the best AAA talent here in the West, right? They've been developing this game throughout the entire Switch era. These people are on payroll year-round. That costs money. That is expensive. The visuals they're putting together are...
which is a very, very cheap place to work from.
I didn't know that. And that
Texas in general, baby. It's the only good thing about this horrid place. But prices are cheap, dirt cheap.
We're not even really disagreeing with each other.
No, we're not. I'm just adding some context.
Yeah. It's hard for me to say that Prime 4 is probably has a higher budget than Breath of the Wild. That's not the case. But what I am saying though is that it definitely has an above average budget for a Nintendo title. I wouldn't be surprised if once the higher end ones are like maybe top 5 or 10. I think it's up there. And so there is a higher expectation of sales. Like I think if Metroid Prime 4 only sells 3 million, that would be bad. Would it be so bad that they'll never make another Metroid Prime game? Not saying that, but Metroid Dread sold 3 million. Prime 4 is clearly a more expensive title than Metroid Dread. It should sell more than 3 million from a business perspective. Anyway, getting back to the point, why doesn't Metroid sell? I think you brought up an interesting point, Brandon, earlier, that it has to do with like the audience that fits that console. And what's interesting, this is where we're going to segue here, is that apparently Take-Two, the father company of Rockstar Studios, responsible for games like Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto, no longer thinks that the Switch or the Switch 2 are a more child-focused consoles, but rather gearing towards everyone, which may appeal to games that are more core-centric or mature-themed, like Grand Theft Auto or even Metroid Prime 4. So that's our segue into our Switch 2 news. So we had a little bit of some investor talk from Take-Two, and I talked about this today in today's video in case you didn't see it. But here, I'll just share this article here. There was a time when Nintendo platforms are really geared at younger audiences, and that was reflected in our release schedule. And that now today with Switch and potentially with Switch 2, the Switch device can support any audience. So, while having nothing specific to report, we actually would fully expect to support Switch. And they also talk about here how apparently, while GTA 6 is only announced for PS5 and Xbox Series X, other versions will follow. Other versions? What other versions would that be? PC and Switch 2. And so this is actually really interesting because Take-Two's essentially admitted that the reason why they didn't support Nintendo the way they did in the past is because they didn't feel that the audiences that were on those platforms would suit their games for the most part.
Yeah.
Now they're conceding that, well, I think that they think that this time around it's a little different. The Switch audiences is more all-encompassing, which means our games would be a better fit. And we've seen some games on Switch, like Red Dead Redemption's on Switch, if I'm not mistaken. There is at least the Grand Theft Auto collection that's on Switch. So they are starting to put some games, but also the Switch is underpowered. So getting these games to work on Switch is, that requires some investment of resources. And
we've
such.
Heard that they, and this may or may not be true. This is just kind of the rumors, the things that float on the wind. But apparently the only reason GTA 5 isn't on Switch is because they simply can't fit it onto the carts, and they didn't want to pay for like super expensive carts, and it would be awkward having a game that required a ton of download that wouldn't fit onto the internal storage of the device.
Yeah,
like, you would buy the game, and then if you didn't have extra storage, you literally just couldn't play it. So I think that's the rumor that that's why it's not on Switch. I mean, it definitely could run. I feel like that's got to be the case because there's no way the game can't run. It was made for 360 and PS3. Like, a version of that game could definitely have been made on Switch by now, easily.
Yeah, it kind of goes back a little bit to what we talked about earlier in the show, about how Monolith Soft has essentially created a better looking version of Xenoblade Chronicles X with more content at half the size. That's something that Nintendo does. Nintendo games do this. Other companies don't really like to do that, for whatever reason. There's a lot that goes into that. But point is, in order to get Grand Theft Auto 5 to work on Switch, they would probably either have to do like what you suggested, where pay for really expensive 64 gigabyte cartridge, which no one does. Have a significant download through the eShop, which basically means your game would be playable from, initial like turn on. Those would be good things. And so, or you kind of go back to like the drawing board with the game and kind of redesign it so it doesn't take up as much space. But that's not easy to do.
No.
So yeah,
so the game with
there's challenges there.
Like, Nintendo's very smart about limiting the amount of types of assets and textures and certain things that are in the games. But a lot of developers like to go just hog wild with a lot of different art, which works, especially in a big city with a lot of different types of environments. You kind of need like all these different assets, and they take up a lot of space. It is tough. But I'm very curious. I guess then we should talk about whether or not GTA 6 is going to be on Switch too. Do you think it is?
This article is, I think, kind of hints at it.
I mean, kind of, but also, even if there is just one version, it is awkward in the way that they worded it to not use the plural of versions. So I don't think that really means too much.
Sure. But like, okay. So to be clear, there is zero confirmation. It is still up for debate. We do not know if GTA 6 will come, but the good news is they haven't said it won't come. There's been no bad news in this debate. There's only been good news. Yeah. So what we just learned only helps. It does not hurt. Does it help a lot? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it only helps a little, but it's something.
I think the game will come because I'm very confident about games coming to Switch 2 because I don't think there's going to be very many games that can't run. Just because, and I think Nintendo is very lucky for this, the Xbox Series S exists. And if it comes to Series S, from all the specs we know, the Switch 2 is very close to the Series S spec. If it can run on Series S, it should, in theory, be not too hard to make it work on Switch 2. So I do think it is going to come, but I definitely don't think it's going to be at the same time. I think
There was
at the
also
earliest,
recently
it might come when the PC version comes about, like, at an earliest, like a year later.
There was also really recently some talk that came out that some devs are not too concerned about Switch 2 getting a lot of third party ports. That like this, there's been concerns coming up that the bottleneck for Switch 2 would be the CPU, and
Yeah.
apparently
I mean, it
this is a
probably
rumor,
will be.
right? Well, yeah, but the rumor is apparent, according to some devs, that they're not really too concerned about this for the most part. Like, it's a minor concern, but that's what it is.
I think
Just
the
a minor
greatest
concern.
thing
It's not as much of a bottleneck as people are worried about.
when you
Supposedly.
look at this current generation, one of the biggest upgrades that is easily noticeable, going from even the Xbox One X and PS4, so not even counting things like, all the obvious resolution increase compared to the base consoles, is just there's almost every game has a 60 FPS mode. The CPUs are so good these days compared to GPUs. We're now in a time where they're much closer. Back in the PS4 generation, unless it was like a small corridor game that was very optimized, you didn't get 60 FPS. You had a lot of series going from 60 FPS on the PS3 down to 30 FPS now with their new versions, like Uncharted 4 was 30 FPS. Pretty much any game that had even semi-open world environments had to be 30 FPS. The CPU was just not good. And nowadays we're seeing a lot of 60 FPS versions. And that gives me hope that there's going to be a lot of scaling then on the CPU side, for Switch 2. I think there's probably going to be a lot of times where we see 30 FPS versions on Switch 2 of these big open world games. For example, I don't think Monster Hunter Wilds is going to run at 60 FPS on Switch 2. I just don't think it is. To be honest, it doesn't seem like it's going to run at a stable 60 FPS even on the bigger consoles. So I think a solid 30 FPS is the best we can hope for Switch 2. And I think there's going to be a lot of games like that where the CPU is going to be able to scale because they can target half the frame rate and therefore get double the CPU performance out of that because they're only targeting half the FPS.
I think I know what you're going to say to this, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. So, part of DLSS, one feature of it is frame generation. So, while it has not been reported that Switch 2 will have frame generation, it has been reported that Switch 2 will have ray reconstruction, which is something even newer for DLSS than frame generation.
Yes.
And so there is, at least from that perspective, some reason to speculate that it might be possible, if they choose to integrate it into the Switch 2, to have this feature, which basically could mean they could target a lower frame rate, but through frame generation, presented as a higher frame rate, essentially. And I wonder, it has me wondering, could maybe with something like this, either it allows them to target games that would struggle to hit 30 with this feature, or target games where they would struggle to hit 60, but because of frame generation, they can get there. Like that would be. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay, so there's two reasons I see that this is not going to work. The first reason, which is less fundamental and could be a non-issue, is that the hardware that the Switch is based off of, the Switch 2, does not support frame generation like that at a base level. It could maybe have been added on. It's not that it doesn't support it. It's just that it's not really strong enough to do it and do it well. And there is special hardware that accelerates that on the 40 series to make it fast enough to be viable. And unless that hardware is back-ported, that first off is just, it's not going to be viable. Secondly, frame generation isn't like magic. You get more frames and you get a smoother presentation, but input latency is actually less than it would be normally. So you would never want to use frame generation to get up to 30 FPS for sure. Never, 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 because that would feel absolutely awful. It would be unplayable garbage. Um, but even 30 to 60 is not something that's recommended. Most games don't have a low enough latency at 30 FPS to feel good than to add latency on top of that. And so it's not like, and it doesn't work for games like where you need to have better timing. So like if the point of the 60 FPS target is to have like really fast reaction times, like for a fighting game or for like Dark Souls or a shooter, first person shooter or something, that doesn't work because you actually have worse input latency. Your reaction times are actually worse with frame generation on than off. So yeah, first off, I'm not even sure if the hardware supports it, and secondly, it's not really a good feature to use unless you're already at preferably 60 FPS, but the lowest that NVIDIA recommends is, I believe, 40 FPS.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's not something I see happening on Switch, because it's a really, really expensive feature that doesn't really have good application unless you're already hitting 60 FPS. It's mainly used to go from 60 FPS to 120. That's its purpose. Its purpose is to get good performance on like a high refresh 120 hertz monitor. So like you can run path tracing and still get 120 FPS. It's meant for that kind of thing. It's not meant for low experience or low hardware. It's in fact not supported on low class hardware specifically.
So I kind of figured you would say something like that, and thank you for eloquently explaining why it seems pretty unlikely, right? But even so, right? Taking like Monster Hunter Wilds, for example. By the way, the Capcom was also recently asked about Monster Hunter Wilds coming to Switch 2, and they said they can't really say right now what plans they have for Switch 2. They're on their NDA, right? Clearly. But
right.
they said they would have to look into it. I don't think they have to look into it. I think they already know. They have. There's no way Capcom does not have Switch 2 dev kits, right?
Yeah.
They know. They just can't say whether they can't say yet, right? So the fact that they didn't deconfirm it to me actually bodes really well. Especially
I
because I
think
feel
there
like game's
will
about to
be
come out.
a version, but I am still hoping that there is an exclusive, or at least timed exclusive version that's built around the capabilities of Switch 2. Because I do think, judging on what we've seen of the console and PC versions from the beta, this game is extremely, like, ridiculously heavy. And it is in, like, the 40 FPS range, even on PS5 Pro sometimes. So the cutbacks to hit Switch 2 and Series S are going to be severe, no
I
matter
wouldn't
what.
mind if
So I'm
Wilds
hopeful there's
hits.
exclusive.
I'd be okay if Wilds hits like 1440p 30 in docked mode on Switch 2, and it's like 900p 30 in handheld
In
mode.
my opinion, the game is likely to target 540p internally in docked mode and target 1080p.
I'm assuming like after DLSS, just so we're clear.
After DLSS, I'm assuming 1080p. Judging off of how the PS5 runs the game, yeah, definitely, because
So 1080.
there are the 60 FPS performance mode on PS5 targets 1080p, and I believe I forget the exact resolution, but it's around 1080p. So yeah, the Switch 2 is probably going to be reconstructed up to 1080p.
Utilitarian RPE in the chat says bring back 480p. Have you not played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in handheld mode? That's like 360.
Yep.
But I mean, listen, as long as the game looks like 1080p is still pretty good.
No,
So,
yeah, I don't think it's going to be like an issue. I just think it's not going to be like... I think if they make a game for Switch 2 specifically, they can pull off something that's more catered to the console.
it's pretty crazy. It's crazy that like you can, 1080 30. We'll see. But it is. I think you bring up an interesting point, Brandon. That maybe we should still get like an exclusive or timed exclusive version, new Monster Hunter, like the next Monster Hunter Rise.
I would hope
And
one that targets 60 FPS on Switch too.
I think the cool thing of like thinking about that though is I think it is fairly realistic because Capcom has like a certain like cadence of releases, right? They keep coming out with certain Monster Hunter games every, so many years, right? And there's different versions. So to assume that they're going to change that, what would they be changing it to, right? So either A, like they're gonna do what they've always been doing, or they're gonna do something different. And basically what I'm getting at here is that Monster Hunter content should continue to come. And it might be really exciting if Switch 2 could basically just get every single Monster Hunter that comes out. That would be awesome. So I look forward to whatever it is that they're gonna do. But let's come back to the chat here for a little bit. Cold Brew Atomy, when it comes to third party, hoping Switch 2 will be graced with Sonic Adventure Collection and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. One can dream. One can dream. I think the Switch has been home to a lot of collections and older games making it onto the console. I don't think that's going to stop with Switch 2. I think that's going to continue. So your dreams may become a reality someday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting tired. But we're not done. Boo Mini with the second super chat of the night. 8 left after this. Can we hit the 10 super chat goal? I don't think so, to be honest.
Seems unlikely, but
we're not pacing for it.
No.
We're not. But we got 15 minutes left, so I have strong doubt. However, thank you,
pressing
Boo
X to
Mini.
doubt.
Thank you, Boo Mini. Maybe we won't get a Ruby dance tonight, but I'll at least bring her in for a little. She'll come out for 5 seconds before she runs away.
Yeah.
We'll see. Anyways, let's continue on with the Switch 2 stuff, right? I think what's interesting is that a few weeks back, I kind of talked about. Yeah, so according to my homepage, it says 9 days ago, I made a video where I said major Nintendo Switch. Like, I'll screen share so you guys see what I'm talking about. Not that it's that complicated, right? So, like, looking at my homepage here, right? 9 days ago, I made this video. Major Nintendo Switch 2 news dropping sooner than you think, right? And then a lot of the Nintendo Switch 2 news just dropped, right? And I actually saw, like, there were people who were mad at this video because I said a lot of Switch 2 news dropped, and the thing is, factually, a lot of Switch 2 news did drop, but it wasn't the news that some people wanted it to be. Like, some people wanted the news to be, hey, some people wanted the news to be a 3D Mario trailer or something, right? What it was we got a Q&A from the Nintendo earnings release with several questions and that where the president of Nintendo answered them. And they provided a lot of interesting perspective on where Nintendo's headed with Switch 2.
Right.
And on top of that, Nintendo did also clarify on the timing of when the Switch 2 will happen. And on top of that, Masahiro Sakurai retweeted the post and maybe hinted at there being some sort of game from him at the presentation. So in my mind, that was a lot of news.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, a couple days later, patents came out for the Switch 2 Joy-Con, which essentially confirmed the mouse controls and other things like the mechanism for how the Joy-Cons attach being more secure. Like, we got to see a lot of details for how the Joy-Cons work on Switch 2. And so when you account for all that, I think within, when I said major Switch 2 news might be dropping soon, I think it did. So I just wanted to put that out there. But
good amount of stuff, yeah.
let me show you some things from the Q&A that people were talking about. So I'm not going to read every single question, but we're going to go through a few. And I don't know why we're starting with the end, but we're starting with the end. Is this too small? Is that a little bit better?
Hold on. What did you say? Sorry, I read a comment and I got distracted for a second.
How dare thee! I was just zooming in to make this a little bit easier to read.
That's a good size right there.
Okay, so many people are currently purchasing the Nintendo Switch. Even though the successor, the Nintendo Switch 2, has been announced, some people may have purchased it in the hope that new titles for the Switch will be released in the future. Will there be a large number of new titles for the Switch after 2025, or will the Nintendo Switch focus on selling classic titles? Furukawa, president of Nintendo. We have currently announced Legend ZA and Prime 4 as titles for the Nintendo Switch scheduled for release in 2025. The Switch is a platform that many people can play. We would like to develop and release attractive software if we can. On the other hand, dedicated software is very important when launching new hardware. With that in mind, we would like to consider various ways, hint hint, to enable many consumers to play our games on Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. I think, Brandon, you know what I'm getting at here, but I'm just going to let you tell me what you make of what I just read.
Yeah, I mean, it seems obvious that they're saying that there's going to be a variety of strategies here. Not everything's going to be treated the same. Some stuff's going to be, cross-gen. Some stuff might just be exclusive, and there's going to be some stuff that maybe is mostly just a Switch 1 title. I think there's going to be clearly a variety here. Yes, various ways.
Yeah, exactly. To me, if there's anything to take away from this, it's that, yes, there will be cross-gen titles for Switch 2.
Yeah, I think it is interesting that, at the very least, I think we can take away that this isn't going to be the same type of cross-gen exactly as we've seen on, say, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S, when they released, and pretty much up until the last year, mainly there was tons and tons of cross-gen stuff, pretty much everything coming over, almost everything. And PlayStation did have some more exclusives, there were some. But mainly everything just came over cross-gen. And it doesn't seem like that is going to be Nintendo's strategy. They are going to be various ways. And they are specifically saying that having big, strong exclusives is a priority for them. So at the very least, they're going to go the closer to the Sony route, where there's still a lot of exclusive titles. But I think they're going to go even more towards exclusives for Switch 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mario Kart's 100% going to be an exclusive Switch 2 title, 3D Mario as well, and there will be more. But there's also going to be some titles like Pokemon Legends Z and Prime 4, that are Switch 1 titles that will come out in the Switch 2 era and will be also relevant on that platform. Continuing on, let's see. What would be another good one to look at here? I'm looking through. I'm trying to remember which questions were most interesting. Reading all 10 would probably just take too long. Brandon, if you see something, be like, "Oh, well, read that one, please." Let's see. Let's read this one. Last year was explained that the Nintendo Switch 2 would be producing quantity sufficient to meet initial demand, but is this still the case? Also with Switch, you had trouble increasing production numbers in response to the large increase in demand immediately after its release. Do you think you need to have the same concerns with Switch 2? The Switch 2 is scheduled to be released in 2025, so specific production plans will be announced at this time. We hope to be able to provide an explanation along with a performance forecast for next fiscal year when we announce our full year financial results. At this point, we are taking risks and proceeding with production so that we can meet as much demand as possible. We would like to determine the level of initial and subsequent demand by observing the reactions after the information was released at the Nintendo Direct on April 2nd, and the reactions of customers who actually tried out the product at trial events. As with the Switch, we believe it will not be easy to rapidly increase production capacity, but based on our past experience, we will continue to make preparations so that we can respond as quickly as possible. So I actually find this interesting because basically they're saying we're waiting to see how people respond to our Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd, to kind of figure out how much consoles we're going to put it out there initially. And I had a conversation with actually Nate, Nintendo Prime, about this, and I was like, hey man, so like, what do you make of this? Do you think this might mean that, like, maybe the Switch 2 is not coming out as soon as we think because they still don't know how much they're going to put out initially? And he made a good point to me, is that, well, they already have all this stuff made, right? Once they get the response on April 2nd, it's not going to take them that long to be like, all right, this is a response that after a week or so, they can gauge it. And then, like, let's say they're aiming for a May 15th launch. They're going to have enough time to sort out fan response. They probably would have a decent idea of where they want to go anyway, and then ship them out. So when I first read this, I wasn't sure if this. I was kind of thinking, does this maybe hurt our chances of Switch 2 coming out sooner than later? But I don't think so.
Well, they are saying that they're hoping to have like a forecast when they announce the full year financial results. So I assume that means they're hoping to say like how many they think they're going to sell then, which is in March, right? That's before the Direct, I would assume.
We hope.
Or is their investors meeting? Because I know that the
the
fiscal year ends in March, but when is the meeting for that?
Afterwards.
Is it after? It's after. Okay.
Yeah.
So is it after the Direct?
I mean, for example, we just got, last week, the investors meeting for the holidays. It took a couple months. So I think it would be in May.
Okay.
That makes sense. They may not have announced the day yet. I gotta double check.
For a second, I was thinking it was going to be March, but I'm like, no, that's when the fiscal year ends. So it would be much after that.
Yeah, so just for perspective, last year, the fiscal earnings release that was kind of like the assessment of their prior financial year was on May 7th, which, by the way, is when they gave us that initial Switch 2 announcement. So, yeah, we won't get that till probably around May. But, it could conceivably could happen a little bit sooner, a little bit later. They haven't given us an exact date yet of when. They haven't scheduled it yet, but around then.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's see here. I'm gonna read one more. I mean, we could go through this, but there's other things to discuss. Actually, this one I think is interesting. I would like to ask what Nintendo's thoughts on product pricing. Considering the current inflation and exchange rate situation and the resulting price differences between Japan and overseas markets, has there been any change in your thinking about the price range that customers will find most attractive for Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2? Furukawa, in addition to the current inflation, we are aware the exchange rate environment has changed significantly since the launch of Switch in 2017. We also need to consider the affordable prices that consumers expect from Nintendo products. When considering the price of our products, we believe that it is necessary to consider these factors from multiple angles. At this time, we cannot disclose the specific price of Switch 2, but we are considering it while taking various points into consideration. At this time, there are no plans to change the price of the Switch hardware. I found this to be a very, very interesting answer. Because one, they say, that they're trying to consider the affordable prices that consumers come to expect from Nintendo, but also inflation has occurred, right? And so when you account for inflation, $300 in 2017, the price of Switch USD, right, is almost $400 now.
Yeah, it's like $390 or something.
Right. And so I think when you think about that, like $400 seems pretty realistic and also still relatively affordable. I don't think they can go under.
No, doesn't seem like they could.
Going over is definitely plausible, but if they're trying to keep prices in a range that consumers would expect, I don't know, $450 seems like a little bit much. It seems outside of what we think of Nintendo. That's what I would say.
I think it has to be $399. Like it just has to be $400. I don't see them doing any other price than $400. Maybe they have another SKU with like more storage or something that's $450. Maybe they have a 500 gigabyte model. It's $450. I don't really see that. I think there's just one SKU with, or one main model with maybe a couple different SKUs for colors or something. But it's just gonna be the one main thing, and it's gonna be $400. It's just what I believe.
So something interesting has come up, and THX 1138, thank you for the super chat. Third of the 10 super chats we need for the goal. We'll see if we hit it, but thank you for the super chat, THX. Will Nintendo discontinue the OLED for Switch 2 at $399?
Well, the OLED's the best-selling version right now, so if anything, they'll discontinue the original.
Well, here's the thing. Apparently, there are some stores that are no longer receiving shipments for the OLED.
Oh.
Yeah.
That would be really dumb, I feel, if they did continue sales for the OLED. Is it not currently the best-selling version?
It is. It is. The OLED is currently the best-selling version of Switch. So
unless they're having trouble sourcing parts, why would they do that?
Well,
if you're having trouble sourcing screens, maybe, but otherwise.
I think that if you phase out the OLED, right? There's some reason behind this. By the way, did you notice that at the end of the question, at the answer, Fudiko says that this time there are no plans to change the price of the Switch hardware?
Yeah, I feel like that's some wording to get around having to answer that question.
At this time, there are no plans to change the price of the Nintendo Switch hardware. I don't know.
I don't think that means that they have no plans or I think maybe they don't have necessarily concrete this is exactly when it's gonna drop. Maybe not, but they are at least very much thinking about
Fudikawa
that.
cannot lie, but
he can do some trickery with his wording, and I feel like that's what this is.
Maybe. Because it just seems weird to me that they would not drop the price of the Switch. It just seems weird. But let's entertain the idea that they don't drop the price of the Switch. Then one way to kind of have things make sense is to phase out the OLED, so that $350 price is just gone, right? And so all of a sudden you have the Switch 2 at $400, and that kind of makes sense. Also, you would no longer have an OLED screen out there to compete with the non-OLED screen of the Switch 2.
Ugh. I mean, but people are still going to know the OLED exists. It's still going to be a secondhand market for it.
So I'm going to tell you right now, right? I'm bringing this up, but I hate the idea. I hate everything. I hate the idea. Right? I don't want this to happen. I hate this idea.
Yeah.
Right? But it is something that's being talked about right now, which is why I'm assuming that's why THX brought it up, because it is something that people are talking about. And I feel
like it would be a misstep.
It may be, it would be. I think what makes the most sense is do not phase out the OLED, drop the price of it, and you better make sure that screen in Switch 2 does not suck. That it's that simple. If you're that worried that the OLED screen is gonna look so much better, then maybe you shouldn't have done that.
Maybe you should put an OLED in it.
Right. Well, but I also don't think it is gonna be a problem. I don't think the OLED's gonna be if you put the consoles next to each other, I don't think people are gonna be like, man, the OLED looks so much better. On the flip side, though, there have been times that Nintendo has put out next gen hardware, and there is a nicer model of the prior gen, right? You look at the DS line, the remember the Game Boy Advance Micro, the Micro looked kind of premium, right? Next to the Nintendo DS, right? Or the Nintendo DS Lite or the DSi might have looked kind of premium compared to the OG 3DS, right? So there have been times where there's this pro model that's been out there that in some ways people might be like, hey, that's kind of nice compared to this next gen console. But, for the most part, obviously next gen console prevails. But there might be some little things, like in this case, the OLED aspect to the screen that people will be like, hey, that's kind of cool. But the fact of the matter is the Switch 2 screen is going to be bigger.
Well,
it's going to be a higher resolution.
Obviously, that they didn't go for the screen because they could have. They're already sourcing these parts. I don't even think that they're expensive because I'm pretty sure that they're getting a very good deal from Samsung on these parts for the screen specifically. So they could have put it in. I feel like the reason they didn't is because the Switch 2 isn't only bigger just to be bigger. I think it kind of needs to be bigger to fit all the horsepower and the cooling and different things required for it. And I think that they saw how, because people are already like, man, the bezels aren't as good as they are in the OLED, and it's an inch bigger screen. So like, I imagine they saw that screen on the OLED screen, what, 7.2 inches?
Yeah. Well, it's 7
inches. 7 inches.
OG Switch is 6 inches. OLED is 7. Switch 2 is apparently 8, and if I'm not mistaken, Switch Lite is 5.4.
Okay, I thought the Switch one was something weird like 6.2 or 6.
Yeah, it's 6.2.
Okay,
it's 6.2. Yeah. Did I say something else?
I think you just said 6.
It's 6.2.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think they saw that 7-inch screen on there where they were like, those bezels are big. I feel like the Switch 2, from what we've seen officially, the bezels are in between the OLED and the original in terms of size. I think they're in a pretty good place, but I feel like with that 7-inch screen, it would have looked more like the original Switch, maybe even worse. So I feel like they were just like, well, we don't have an 8-inch OLED screen to source for good prices.
Screen size is not 5.4. I was wrong. It's 5.5.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You get it right.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Misrepresent my boy.
Oh, that's why I made sure to fact check. So,
yeah, I mean, Nintendo clearly saw, like, that this screen, to them, is more worth it than the OLED screen. So, I don't think it's going to be, like, this awful LCD that's terrible. But I also am not expecting it to be some kind of, like, mini LED.
I think
there's
going to be a revision with a bigger, better screen a few years from now.
Yeah.
4 years, like in 2029, there will be a Switch 2 Pro or whatever we call it. Yeah.
Yeah. Switch 2 OLED, I assume.
Maybe they just keep it simple. So to answer THX's question, then, do we think they're going to discontinue the OLED?
I don't think so. I think they're just going to drop the price, $50. I think they might end up discontinuing the original. Yeah. And keep the OLED at 300 and then have the light at 200. They might not drop the light too much or at all.
And maybe the reason why there are some stores reporting that they're getting less shipments is just because, well, they're starting to, diminish the amount they're putting out there because sales are trending downwards. And they are, transitioning towards putting out more Switch 2s. But that doesn't mean there won't be OLEDs available. There's just not going to be as many because there won't be a need to sell as many. So maybe that's all it is. And to your point from earlier about them not dropping the price, maybe it's just, wizardry, right? That's word wizardry, and they will. It's impossible for me to think that this makes any sense to not be able to drop the price of the console. They have not dropped the price once in 8 years. This has never happened before for any other video game system that I can think of. So, like, I have to imagine that they will be able to drop the price. I would be totally surprised if, like, if they drop the price $50 and all of a sudden they're selling at a loss. I don't believe that.
It's not like they're using, like, cutting edge hardware, because we do have issues with, like, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X where they actually don't cost that much less to make than they did at launch. So they're still the same price in every region, even 5 years on. But Switch shouldn't have that. It should be significantly cheaper to make that than it was. before. Like
One
they
would
should be
think,
able to
right?
drop the price. Like this isn't some new manufacturing node that's really expensive and doesn't scale well over time or some nonsense. Like these are tried and true nodes that are really really cheap and really old at this point, and like it should not be
What
an
might be
issue.
crazy is Nintendo might be making a killing because it might have just been cheaper to make. Like,
Yeah, I feel like their profit margins have to be really good.
maybe that's probably the main reason why they won't drop the price, because they don't need to. Sales they haven't trending downwards, but they've been trending downwards slower than any other prior console for them, and they've
True.
never dropped the price. Like that's insane.
But when Switch 2
Uh,
comes, it will decline faster.
So
than it is
right,
now.
so what's interesting, right? We're hearing these stories about some stores not getting OLED shipments, and people are turning this or spinning this into, oh, maybe they're going to discontinue the OLED, and maybe they will, which would be mind-boggling to me. But maybe it's actually evidence to the contrary, right? Like it's interesting how you can interpret it in two opposite directions. One direction could be, hey, we're going to actually drop the price of the console soon because we're not selling as much, which is why we're not shipping as much, right? That's like the,
right.
What makes the most sense to us, right? But this other side interpretation is, oh, they're phasing out the OLED because they're going to sell a Switch 2 and screw everything. Like, I agree with you, Brendan. That would be a misstep. If it happens, we'll hate it. Will everything work out? Probably, but we're going to hate it. So I'm going to read one more question from this Q&A, and then we're going to close out with some Q&A.
Cool.
Interestingly. Yeah, so... Oh, I'm not going to read this whole thing here, but I just found this first question interesting because basically Nintendo admitted that, we had to drop the forecast multiple times, basically because we didn't... They acknowledged that the reason why sales were good in 2023 and they hit their forecast is because they had great games like Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Wonder, and the games in 2024 were just not as good. They basically admitted that we just didn't put out games that were good enough to hit our forecast, which I agree with. If you had another 3D Zelda or another 3D Mario game or 2D Mario game, maybe. They didn't do that. Like they had no games that had even a remote chance of winning Game of the Year. They didn't even win Best Family Game or something at the Game Awards. Like from a Metacritic perspective, this was maybe the worst year in the Switch era. They weren't bad games. To be clear, before someone attacks you, how dare you insult these games? They were not bad games, but objectively speaking, they were also not Nintendo's best. They were just,
the polish on some of them was down comparatively. Like there was frame pacing issues in Mario and Luigi Brothership that was really obvious, where they targeted 31 FPS or 31 and a half FPS or something. So the frame rate just looks janky all the time. And then you have these like huge frame rate dips constantly switching between 30 FPS and 60 FPS in Echoes of Wisdom. There's a weird lack of polish in certain titles this year. And I don't appreciate that.
Oh, I mean, I think it's just, we're transitioning. But yeah, I found it interesting they admitted that. But the question I want to read here, I think I touched on it in today's video. Question 2. Regarding the recently announced Switch 2, what kind of feedback have you received from customers and software developers after the preview video was released? I'd like to know the reaction from people. Furukawa, we announced on January 16th the successor to the Switch 2. It will be released in 2025 along with a preview video. Oh, that it will be, blah, blah, blah. You get that part. Detailed information about the Switch 2 will be provided in the Nintendo Direct, Nintendo Switch 2 2542, to be released on April 2nd, 2025. In addition, we will be holding the Switch 2 experience events in cities around the world where you can experience the Nintendo Switch 2 early. Continuing, we are grateful that many people around the world have seen the trailer, but since we have only shown the name and shape of the hardware, we believe that we will have to wait until detailed information is released on April 2nd to get a true sense of the reaction. At this point in time, many people are interested, so we will first focus on releasing that information and then have many people actually get their hands on the hardware to convey its appeal. A shout out to your cat, Brandon.
Yes.
And so it's really this part of the answer that's interesting, right? The first part's like, just whatever. But
yeah, first I thought it was a non-answer until you were like, and there's more, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It's
like,
kind of like,
didn't answer this at all.
You just basically said, yesterday was Monday. Thanks. I know. But yeah, it's this part, right? where they talk about how they acknowledge that there is an excitement, but they still are waiting
Right.
for the April 2nd presentation to get a proper understanding of what people think of Switch 2.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the case. As much as we've seen all these rumors and leaks and all this stuff, which has now been officially confirmed in this trailer for the most part, we still don't have a complete picture of what they're doing with Switch. We haven't seen the games. We haven't seen the software in terms of UI and voice chat features and messaging features. We don't really know how all this is going to come together. As he said, we know the shape of the unit. We know some certain different features. We kind of know the specs, which isn't even official, but from the leaks we know the specs.
Right.
But in terms of official stuff and even non-official stuff, we don't really have a full idea of what it is going to be like to play games on Switch 2. We really don't. So until we get that sense of like how games are going to look, how games are going to feel, how games are going to be impacted by playing on the Switch 2, like we can't really fully say how we feel about the console.
Right. And you're speaking in general, like about the masses.
Yeah, well, I mean, even us, like, we don't know for sure what, how Nintendo's going to utilize this hardware. For the most part, I feel like because we're, Nintendo hardcore, we're going to at least be, somewhat happy. But, there's still a scale for me. Like, we'll see, like, how these games are looking, how these games are playing, what's going to come out. Because we assume that there's going to be all these big, huge, mind-blowing games. But, we haven't seen them. So until that happens, we don't know for sure how we're going to be feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just agree basically. It sort of just highlights that Nintendo really, with the Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd, that's where it's going to be like a bigger deal. And I found it interesting because I saw some different venues this past week refer to the April Direct as the reveal for the Switch 2, and I was like, wait, we already got the reveal. But in a sense, some of these venues that kind of suggest that April 2nd is a reveal, in a sense, they're not wrong because we haven't had the full reveal. We know how the console looks. We know there's a Mario Kart game. Technically, we don't even know if it is Mario Kart. I mean, it's a pretty safe assumption, but we don't know for 100%, right?
Could be Wario Kart. You don't know.
And as we've talked about in the past, right? Yeah, what if it is? It'd be hilarious. But it would not sell well. But this first look trailer is nothing compared to the first look trailer for Switch 1.
Right.
Like the Switch 1 showed 6 games. This one showed 1. And I think that alone just kind of tells you a lot. Like it tells you, I mean, it's not even just the games, right? It's the games is one thing. Like there's 6 times as many games. Like that's already like a huge difference, right? But 2, the Switch 1 trailer showed you using the hardware in different scenarios.
Right.
This trailer didn't. Like, yeah, they hinted at the mouse stuff, and we know pretty much that's what it is. But we didn't see people using it. They didn't show different examples of using the hardware. And maybe some of that's because, well, if it's Switch 2, we should already know kind of what that is. But the point is that there's still a lot to be said about this console. So, basically all eyes are on the April 2nd Direct, really, which is 50 days from now. I do want to dive into some super chats. I think they kind of somewhat touch on this.
Cool.
So, for example, Golden with the super chat. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Golden here says, "Keep up the good work, Andres. I appreciate it. Thank you. Personally, I was wanting a lot more from the Prime 4 trailer since I really believe the big trailer is still coming." And I totally agree. And I think this is actually a good point to bring up following what we were just talking about regarding the first look, because really what we got from Metroid Prime 4 Beyond was the first look. And sometimes the first look might be more significant than others, but in the case of Prime 4, I really think it was just scratching the surface. And I've made the comparison before to the first trailer we got for Breath of the Wild. And that first trailer we got for Breath of the Wild, it was an awesome trailer. It showed an open world Zelda game, but we really didn't know much else beyond that. We didn't. And so when it comes to Prime 4, I think it's probably not an open world game, right? But also we might not want it to be an open world game, just for the record. But
no, I don't want it to be an open world game.
No. But the point is,
I always think about like when they showed off Mario Odyssey. They showed that game off in the initial real trailer a little bit, but then they announced that it was Mario Odyssey in January presentation. But we didn't know about Cappy, the Cappy mechanic, which is like the main mechanic of the game, until E3. We didn't know that existed at all. No. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff in Metroid Prime 4 that we don't know about. I think they just wanted to show like a cool segment where I think they didn't actually want to show that much new stuff. They were like, this is Prime. Here's the normal kind of Prime stuff. Here's some cool
it was a 2-minute
visuals
trailer. It was a short trailer.
Bye.
Yeah. I mean, like, a big chunk of the trailer is just a title. Like, it was not a long trailer. I'm trying to find a screenshot. Okay, this is actually... All right, this is not mine, right? I think this is made by Cardinal H. So I'm just sharing this render because it was the first thing I saw. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to share this because that's booty. No, the render he made is beautiful, but it's just what I had there was not. I just want to show you something, a screenshot of Prime 4 real quick, just to kind of highlight how little we know about this game. I just realized I don't have like too many screenshots of like the gameplay like just on hand, but I'm gonna pull one up real quick here.
Yeah, and Google Images sucks nowadays, so it's hard to find anything.
It's all right. I got what we need right here. So
you notice that Google Images is just the worst these days? Maybe. So just screen sharing Adobe Premiere again. But also I'm upset that I didn't see this. Whatever. Anyway. Why is the magnet off? I hate it when that's bane of my... Anyway, it does not matter. But this is what I want to get to. Okay. So, looking at Prime 4, right? First off, whenever I look at this, I'm just like, man, this is beautiful. Like, look, there's so much going on here. It blows my mind. It blows my mind as a Switch 1 game. It just blows my mind. It does. The amount of different types of materials on screen at once is so impressive for a Switch game.
The lighting effects, like all of this, like there's particles.
You can see
here,
like
smoke and gas.
There's like 3 different metal types just on Samus's ship that all look very distinct. You got the glass, you got the rocks, you got like the dull metal on the ground, which is very distinct.
Look
to
at this,
the other
like
metals.
you see the boosters, right? You see the light hitting the ground, but there's also like the smoke, right? And as it moves around, like, and then also the rocks, like, are pretty high geometry.
So much geometry for a Switch game.
And looking out, like, Samus is like kind of far away, but you can tell from here, like, just how like detailed she is, and like
you
how
can see the light glowing on her.
Oh, and then the blasters, the boosters. I mean, like, just crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, this is not what I want to talk about, but just like, but like, I think there's even rain. There's rain, but then there's also like,
honestly, these materials look more impressive to me than the PBR materials in Mario Kart 9 from what we've seen.
There's raindrops, there's dirt, there's rock, and there's like sparks. Like there's several particle effects going on. Anyway, not what I wanted to bring up. This is what I want to bring up. Like, you just look at this screen right here. This is the missile launcher. What the hell are the other 3 buttons? We have no idea. We have no idea. So, and this is probably the beginning of the game, like the opening sequence. So
it seemed like Samus has any. Well, I can't. The health is different than normal.
I mean,
no. Okay, it is. I'm looking at the wrong part of the screen.
The health is up there, and there's actually space for cells.
It's been a while since I've played Prime, so I forget how they had the UI.
Yeah, it's
But
fine.
yeah. Clearly,
Also,
it's the
like,
beginning of the game.
there's
Showing us
two
one health
different
bar.
types of missiles here, I think, because like you have like
That's what I was looking at.
yeah, there's two different things. Like, what are the other types of missiles? We have no idea, and that would be just so. There's two different types of missiles from the beginning of the game, and that's just the missile launcher. What are the other ones? What are the beam? I think I've made my point. There might not be beam weapons. I don't know. Point is, we don't know. This is the beginning area of the game, which might be linear, right? The beginning game probably is linear. But here's what's crazy. This next section, we don't know what it is. I don't think it's open world, but it's clearly more open than the beginning of the game. And it might open up even more. That happens a lot, though. There are games that like start off pretty linear at first, and then they open up, right? Like even Tears of the Kingdom starts off like in a like small area, and then it opens up. So
it's also hard to tell if this opens up or if it's one open area because it kind of closes in again. Like, right? It seems like you have to go through another like tunnel under the tree. So this could be the biggest part of this area for all we know.
Right? It could be. But I kind of reckon that this is literally my assumption. This is the second area of the game right after that first part of the trailer, right? Like you go through a portal and this is where you show up. Yeah, man, this looks so good. I don't know what it is. This is an uncompressed trailer, by the way. I know you don't see what you see probably doesn't look as good as how it looks to me on my screen.
Right.
But
the most
really
impressive thing for me is just all of the shadows being cast by like these huge trees on the ground and in like different parts of the world, like all casting shade onto each other very convincingly. You see like the shade building up around the tunnel and the tree. Like the shading in this is so convincing. I feel like they had to have done some kind of like baked. Like this is like light maps or some kind of like baked ray tracing or something.
I don't know, man. It just looks crazy.
It looks so good. The shading and the lighting just looks so
I really don't think you guys can see how good it looks. Like again, because I'm looking
I'm
at
sure
it,
on your side it looks way better.
Yeah, it does. And I think when people just look at the trailer on YouTube, it sucks. Like I'm looking at uncompressed footage and it's just like insane. But anyway, point is, right, as Golden was saying, there's a lot more I think they can show with the Prime 4 trailer. Like we still got a lot more to see of this game. It's gonna be crazy. And I bet we'll see that in the Switch 2 Direct. Taker610 with a super chat as well. Thank you for the super chat. I want Nintendo to get that record from Sony, so that's going to require price drop or a new SKU. Maybe end the Switch with a $299 OLED light. I mean,
$299 light. Oof.
I don't know about it.
Ooh, rough.
I don't know about that. Yeah. Like I agree that maybe an OLED light, but I don't think it should be $300.
Maybe $250.
Maybe $250. Or $200.
Yeah.
Right? Because there'll be a price drop of the normal Switch Lite, or they'll phase it out or something, and the OLED goes to $300 and the Switch. Like I like discontinue the Switch Lite and the OG Switch. Release a Switch Lite OLED at $200. You have the Switch OLED Lite at $200. Switch OLED at $300. Switch 2 at $400.
Right.
To be honest with you, I think the Switch OLED at $300 is a ripoff. But like if you have Switch 2 at $400, like why? Why would you, But they're not gonna just get rid of it. So sorry. How much noise did that make when my mic fell and hit my chest?
Not that much.
A lot? Was it an annoying amount?
No.
Okay. Just checking. Appreciate you. But I do agree with you, Taker, that not specifically on a $300 OLED light, but I do agree that they got to drop our price or a new SKU, something. They got to do something because they got to continue those sales. And what's funny is that it's not even funny, just like it's factually true. You look at the end of most Nintendo generations, even after a new console comes out, there is another revision of the prior gen console. New 2DS came out after Switch. So, definitely I think there should be another one for Switch. Push those sales. It's still selling relatively well. And I think they will hit the once. I mean, they're only 10 million away. If they have another healthy year, which they won't, not compared to prior years, they're going to hit it. But, you put out another SKU, that'll help. Within 2 years, they'll be there for sure.
Yeah. I think it's
THX
probably
with another
easier for
super
them
chat.
just
Oh, the super
price
chats are coming
drops.
in.
Oh, nice.
THX OG Switch has a high profit margin than the OLED. That is interesting.
Higher profit
A
margin.
higher profit margin than the OLED.
I mean, I could see that. I guess.
Because
I'm
that
trying to
OLED.
think. You have the screen, you have the storage, and you have the dock, and you have the kickstand. All add cost. So I could see that being a little bit more profitable for the OG Switch than the OLED. But they're selling much more of the OLED, so the OLED's much more desirable.
Yeah.
So they're probably making more money off the OLED even still.
I mean,
And I doubt the profit margins are that far.
quite
off,
frankly,
even so.
the OLED should not. The OLED should be more than $50 more expensive than the OG Switch. The OG Switch is overpriced. That's why it's a higher profit margin.
Yeah.
So, I think the Switch OLED at this point is overpriced. They both should be cheaper, but maybe they drop the OG Switch by more than $50. But also, Nintendo does like their profit margins. So
yeah, that's the thing is, like, Nintendo could easily do what the other companies do and sell their boxes at a loss or very close to, like, just breaking even, and then just make money back on software, like NSO and their games, and they commission the 30% commission they get on third-party games. So they could easily make all of their profit on that, but they like to make even more profit, which, that's what companies do, but sometimes it is annoying. Because it's like, yeah, the $350 for a Switch OLED is kind of ridiculous when a Series S costs $300.
Yeah, I mean, it is a handheld, and I think that does add value, but...
Yeah, but still.
I get it. I totally get it. Series S is a current-gen platform. Switch OLED is not.
Yeah.
So, definitely a good point. Sam Talks Games with another super chat. That's wild. So, even though technically we're out of time for the goal, we are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, there's an 8th super chat. So,
man, people really trying to get it in the last few minutes.
I'm at the 7 of 8th super chats that we've got in. If we get 2 more, I will bring out Ruby for her to dance for you all. Will we get that goal? I don't know, but we're definitely making a hell of a run here at the end. So thank you for the super chat here, Sam Talks Games. What's up, Andres? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. How vastly do you think they will go into NSO upgrades and online infrastructure in the Switch 2 Direct? Praying for Miiverse and GameCube on NSO. So how much is definitely a tough question, I would say, but I'm gonna give you this. That C button, that extra button that was obscured in the reveal trailer, it's just blank in the reveal trailer, I think that's going to take up a whole segment in the Switch 2 Direct. I don't know how much of that segment it'll be, if it'll be a 3-minute segment, a 5-minute segment, but there's going to be an entire segment dedicated to that button. And that button is going to be a big new feature for the console. If the rumor is true that it's basically about communication features, group chats, video messaging, and sharing of your game screen with up to 12 different NSO members at a time, that's going to be a big NSO feature. They're going to advertise that. I think at the very least that will be there. And they may, that's the part of the room, but they may expand on that, right? Maybe they expand on how you can message your friends and connect and communicate with them. And I don't know if
Right.
it'll be a Miiverse exactly, but there could be some level of forum or community there, and so I think that'll be there. I feel like I
Probably
can say that
talk about.
with a
I hope they
what
talk about getting rid of friend codes and just
I don't
replacing that with friend
I
invites and such.
I feel like friend codes are not going to disappear, but maybe you can like have something on top of it so you can use either
Yeah,
or.
maybe you still have a friend code just in case that's what you want to use, but
The thing
definitely
is,
like alternate ways of adding friends or requesting
we
friends would be
already
great.
know that NSO accounts are transferring over, and friend codes are linked with that. So there would have to be some vast changes. But as you said, as long as there's like an alternative way, I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, I don't mind friend codes still existing as a thing, but other ways, please.
Yeah. As for GameCube NSO, keep praying.
I don't think that is going to be announced here. I don't think they're going to talk about like emulation side of or that the games side of like adding things to NSO at this direct.
I mean, maybe they will have to an extent. I think they'll have to at least talk about how things are transferring over.
Well, yeah, they'll have to talk about that, but I assume that they'll just be like, yeah, it's all the features you'd expect from Switch 1 with more stuff.
Well, yeah, but what are more stuff, right? Like,
yeah, I don't think they're gonna talk about games though yet. I think the more stuff's gonna be the online features,
maybe
and the friend
they
features,
maybe
and
they
voice
say
chat
that
and stuff.
they might say we have more NSO announcements to come down the road, and that's something we see like in a September direct.
Exactly. And I think it's
Yeah.
gonna be something like usually we see those kind of updates in September.
Yeah. So I think we're on the same page here, but I think they have to at least mention that there will be more updates to NSO coming down the road. They'll at least say that during the direct because they have to address what they're doing with NSO on Switch too.
Yeah, if they are doing like game patch upgrades where they're paid for normal people, but if you have NSO or maybe you might have to have the expansion pass, maybe not. But either way, like you get those for free. That would probably be something they would talk about during the direct. Like, oh, we get the Breath of the Wild 4K 60 FPS patch for free.
Maybe they show it off earlier, but they're like, oh, by the way, Breath of the Wild 4K is available for free for NSO members day one.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool. It's like, hey, Breath of the Wild 4K is a launch title.
That'd be
sort of.
dope.
Kind of. It's a launch title, but like, it's not like a big deal launch title. It's just like
it's just a patch.
Cherry on top.
Much.
Yeah,
I don't think it would get its own like physical version or anything.
Yeah. That's what I would want.
Yeah.
We'll see. The next super chat here. Oh, snap. Ruby, whirl up them legs.
Oh, did we hit it?
Oh, we did.
Nice. I am going to be right back really quick.
Okay. Fortnite World. Thank you for the super chat. Can I put Billie Eilish wallpaper on Switch 2? I don't know. But I think if you love Billie Eilish, you can try. I mean, assuming that like you can like jailbreak your Switch 2 or mod it, then probably. I probably won't talk about that stuff on the channel. But it is speculated it might be harder to do that on Switch 2, but we won't know until that happens. I do, however, anticipate that there may be some extra customization on Switch 2 and the Switch 1. Although we've only had the 2 themes on Switch 1 the entire generation, we thought we would get more. We never did. That maybe on Switch 2 we finally will. Taker610 with another super chat just to getting us to 9. Thank you. Appreciate you with that super chat. Anthony Nelson adds one more in there, hitting the 10. Appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. And that Netweed09, I think this is 11, C equals cat button. That's it. So it's the cat button. So if you press the C button on the Switch Joy-Con, Ruby will start dancing.
Yes.
That may be it. And then Fortnite World with another super chat. So now this would be super chat number 12.
Let's
Billie
go.
Eilish will be the dance. Hey, there's another dance right there. There's another dance. Maybe I don't know the Billie Eilish dance, but maybe we can
Yeah,
teach
I don't,
Ruby. Yeah.
don't know about her.
Yeah. THX with another super chat. Do we see a SSB title on year 2 of Switch 2? Super Smash Bros. Title, right?
It's very possible.
Well, Sakurai reposted the Nintendo Direct announcement of the Switch 2 happening of like the time of it, and he said, "Wow," like with an exclamation point. He has a history of teasing things. There could be something more to this tease. It might just be him expressing his excitement. But I would say that I'd be surprised if there is not some sort of Smash update by the end of the second year of Switch 2. I think there's even a possibility we get it within the first year. That's insane. And I'm not saying we will. I'm just saying it's possible. So I would say if I'm going to predict anything, I will predict that within the first 2 years of Switch 2, we will have some sort of Smash update, whether that's a Fires Pass Volume 3, a Smash Ultimate Deluxe, or just a brand new Smash Brothers. Something along those lines. There's a few different directions there, but I think yes, there will be a big update for Smash Brothers by then.
Yeah. I am hoping they don't do a Smash Brothers Ultimate Deluxe because I want there to be a new game on Switch 2, like a brand new game, and not have it just be like a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe situation where we have to wait till the next generation.
That's an interesting point.
So hopefully it's not that, but I could see like a 4K update patch for that game. It runs at native 1080p 60 on Switch 1, so I'm sure Switch 2 could probably, even without DLSS, do 4K. So I would like to see that. And then later down the line, maybe they do a Fighters Pass 3 as well at the same time. So they give a 4K update on Switch 2, and then also here's some new content while we're working on the new game. And then a few years in, maybe we do have to wait a little bit longer. So I'm curious if they know what direction they want to go with Smash, and how that's going to be. So yeah, I kind of feel like we might have to wait a little bit longer, and they're going to do something big with that game that's very, very unique. Because I kind of feel like they have to do something unique because they can't just make another game that's even bigger than Smash Ultimate somehow. But maybe they can. Who knows?
We'll see. I mean, I think Nintendo knows that getting Smash out early is important. So I'd be surprised, but also, Nintendo took a long time to give us Mario Wonder.
True.
But it's Smash, bro. It's Smash. Smash is like the...
Yeah, but if they have Fighters Pass 3 in between to hold us over, and then a 4K version of Ultimate
I mean, if it's
on
Fires
Switch,
Pass Volume 3 and a 4K update as a holdover, okay. Right? But if it's just a 4K update, I'm like, all right, that ain't gonna cut it.
No, that wouldn't be enough.
Yeah. Okay, so I got some questions in the live chat I want to get to, and then I'll get to Ruby with the dance. Trying to think of all right, so I'll focus on. I got another super chat here. I read that one already. From Raijin. Thank you for the super chat. I put his Switch 1 game line prediction in chat. I'm trying to find it, Raijin. But thank you for the super chat. If you want to post it again, I'll read it. I just haven't seen it. OMG added me. Do you think Xbox is a dying brand? Or they are slowly turning into Sega? I think they're clearly dying as a home console maker, but I don't think they're dying as a publisher. I think they're getting stronger as a publisher. So
I think that they're going to try something unique and very different and very outside of the norm for what you would expect from a console. And I am curious to see if that's going to be, how compelling that's going to be, because they have the ability to leverage Windows and let you do things that no other console manufacturer can let you do, and make something really interesting and really unique, and really give you some versatility out of your console that you wouldn't expect, some PC functions that you wouldn't expect. And I think that they could do something very interesting. I'm not really worried about them failing or stopping hardware. I don't think they're going to stop hardware anytime soon. No.
Yeah, I like what Lex says here that they're evolving. I
Yeah.
I think
They're in a
I
very
think I
rough
think you
transition
might be
phase where
right.
they're trying to still figure out what they want to do with their brand. And hopefully, as long as the vision is a good vision and they execute on it well, in a few years they'll be in a much better place. So that'll make a lot more sense. Hopefully, they'll be in a better, more stable position. And I think the next console that they launch is going to be something very unique. Hopefully, something very special and very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want Xbox to like I'm you see like for me like I think it's healthy that all three are around.
Yeah,
So
you need that
competition
competition.
brings out the best in us. Can bring out the worst as well, but if you're left unchecked, that's far worse.
Yeah.
So definitely it's important that they stick around. So Raijin had this is their lineup they suggested. Let's see. September 25th, Mario 3D All Stars Deluxe includes Galaxy 2 and 3D Land. November 20. So this is September in 2025. November 2025, Legends ZA. February 2026,
Mm,
Kid Icarus Uprising Remastered. April 2026, Luigi's 1 Remake. June 2026, Mario
interesting.
Baseball. Um, so did I miss? Is there? Okay, so I missed the first half. This is the first half here. In February, Prime 2+3, April Kirby, June Prime 4, August Fire Emblem. Honestly, I think that's a pretty good lineup because you're spacing out a
Yeah.
few months, right? Like you're allowing for the Switch 2 exclusives to have like their spotlight, and obviously the Switch 1 games can still be played on Switch 2. That's a pretty good lineup. I like that.
Yeah.
That worked pretty
We'll see
well.
how
Also, I'd
accurate
love
it
to see
is, but
Luigi's Mansion 1 on Switch 1. Yeah.
it would be interesting because they remade that game for 3DS, so it'd be interesting for them to remake it again. But I mean, obviously, it'd be a very, very
Mm-hmm.
different type of project. But it's just interesting that that game keeps coming back in various forms. But I like it. So,
Yeah.
and it hasn't had a remake that's actually like substantial yet. The 3DS one was kind of like a sideways step, I feel.
I'll be happy with just a Luigi's Mansion 1 port.
I mean, I'd be happy better than nothing.
The thing is, the original look of that game is awesome. Like that, just like upscaled to 1080p would be pretty nice. That's all I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
as an NSO game, I'd even be happy with it.
Yeah,
This
if we
is
get like
the
GameCube
last
backwards
of the.
compatibility, or I mean NSO, GameCube NSO.
No, you can put your GameCube discs inside the Switch 2, and they work.
It'd be epic.
That'd be epic.
It's like
The battery
PSP.
would
It's
die
got like
immediately,
a
but
disc
yeah.
drive on the back.
The thing is, because the GameCube discs are so small, it's like somewhat feasible.
Yeah, those are like the same
Yeah.
size as like the PSP disc. So
What if there was like a GameCube backwards compatibility that like they came out with a USB-C like disc connector, like so you plug it in so at the back
that'd be
it also
epic.
comes with a battery, so like it's a battery charger plus disc reader for GameCube discs, and it comes with GameCube Joy-Cons that have analog triggers. Oh my god, that'd be so cool. It's never gonna happen.
No.
Anyways, I'm just reading off Raijin's the rest of their lineup. In August we get Rhythm Heaven, October Metroid 6. That's I mean that's a good wrap up. Very good. Connor, there is no way Kirby Planet Robot is happening on April 25th, so instead they should replace that with a 2-pack collection of Triple Deluxe and Robot. We'll see. We'll see. Jacob, thank you. I appreciate you. Joseph Hartman, When do you think Pokemon Legends ZA will release? A little wonky with it being a Switch game coming out the same year as a new system. So I think. So this is tough because there is speculation that there may be a remake
Right.
also coming out soon.
Yeah, I think
I don't
best
like.
case
I personally,
scenario
I
in
wish
my mind is that they wait all the way until November to release this game, and then the remake comes out early 2026, or
with
even late 2026. But yeah, I just want them to wait as long as possible, get the best. I feel like they really need to take the time to really put in the quality, and not only that, but to like upgrade their own tools to make their workflow better and stuff. There's a lot of time they need to take just to make everything at that company better.
I think Pokemon Legends ZA is going to come out in August.
Very well could.
Just a
Summertime
guess.
seems good,
It is.
but I just hope
100% a
as
guess.
possible.
I do not know. No one has told me anything. I'm just pulling it out of me. August. That's a prediction vomit. August. There is some reasoning. The reasoning is one, I think that you're going to want to focus on, there's going to be some big things coming out this holiday, right? And because it's a Legends game, their Game Freak is not necessarily beholden to the November, October time slot as they have been for their other mainline games. So that gives us more flexibility, and maybe they do want to avoid the strong holidays with things like 3D Mario, Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, there's a lot of stuff there. Not to say that Legends of ZA should be worried about those games, but like, there's going to be some communication between Nintendo and Game Freak in terms of when they put this game out, right? In terms of like they're pacing out their lineup of games. And so there's that reasoning, but also I think it's obviously not coming out really soon. There needs to be some time.
Yeah, I mean,
and if it comes out in August, that does open the door for. We haven't seen squat, right? They can have a quick turnaround, right? Which, I mean, August I think would be a relatively quick turnaround, but not super quick. But then there's still enough. There's still like a healthy gap between August and like what something else that could maybe there could be a remake that does come out for the holiday or early next year, and then there's still plenty of time for Generation 10 to come out probably November 2026. So again, it's a guess, but that's what I'm going to throw out there. So yeah. All right, I think it's time that I fetch Ruby. Fetch for the dance.
Sounds like a plan. You know where she is?
I'm trying to think though. Like particular song for the Ruby dance.
A song.
Yeah, I can find her. She's not hiding. She just has a couple spots. I'm trying to think of a song I should put up while she's dancing. Let's see.
Rubester.
All right. I don't know if I can play this one. I don't normally put other things on here. So I'm trying to figure out how to do it. Oh, I could just screen share, right? If I screen share, then she won't be on camera. So it wouldn't work that way.
Yeah. She'd be
tough.
She'd be on camera, just not as big. Not the focus. And the focus.
But gonna make her the focus. I'm figuring it out. Give me a second. I'm trying to make a choice here.
It's very important.
Okay, here we go.
Pick her theme song.
Yeah, 100. All right, will this work? Hopefully,
Anthony Nelson just wants you to sing to us.
I can't do that. I can't sing. I can't even like raise my voice to a high pitch. Whoa. Oh, like my voice dies. I don't know. I got hit like in the throat like in college. That's it.
Damn. I can sing kind of. I can sing pretty well at an amateur level.
Okay. Well, if you can
No
sing,
professional. I'm not gonna do that though, because as I
Why
said,
not?
it's an amateur level. Also, I need to be able to hear the music to because I often my brain just makes up shit that it's
Okay.
wrong.
All right, I'm gonna get fetch Ruby.
Kill.
I put a song on there that might work. It might be a bad. It's just gonna be funny. All right. Be right back.
My voice just isn't warmed up either. Otherwise, maybe I could hit you with a couple of fa la 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 la's. I would love to get some professional singing lessons. I've been trying to warm up my voice and practice, but I'm not a professional. Wow. Thanks, Lex. I know I'm so good. Oh my gosh. Here she comes, the moment we've all been waiting for. The cat of the hour. There she is, Queen Ruby.
All right.
Exactly how I hope the stars arrive. Oh my gosh. She's hidden the gritty. Oh, okay. Is this from Origami King?
No.
Oh, okay.
You gotta shake your booty. Realize the camera's not doing a good job. Okay.
What is the music from?
Look at you dance.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Master Koga. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Master Koga.
I've literally only heard this song the one time that I fought him.
Okay, you're good. That's it.
Or no, you fight him multiple times in Tears of the Kingdom. So I probably heard it several more times.
I think she just turned it off.
She's just like
she just ran. Nope. She ran through and she pressed on the keyboard and turned it off. She's like, "I'm good.
Don't want it.
I didn't sign up for this." So, but there, she kind of danced. She hasn't completely run away. She's right. Oh no, she just left. She was on the desk for a little bit and then bounced. Yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty much at the end of the show. That's pretty much it. Boomini asks, how old is Ruby? I don't remember. So this is her registered emotional support animal card. So I got this because she was in Colombia. Like I found her breed being made by a breeder in Colombia. And the only way I could get her over to where I live is by making her my emotional support animal officially. So they would allow me to take her on the plane. Because when she was born, it was not too far after COVID. So there were still COVID restrictions. Like I still had to wear a mask at the airport. So her date of birth is actually December. She was born December 2021. So she's 3 months and a few months old. She's like 3 years and 3 months old. Yeah.
Very nice.
So
I think she's around the same age as my cat. But I can never remember because I can never remember anything. No, timelines are not my strong suit. So I'm trying to remember when we got him. We got him when he was like a month or two old. and that was like 2 or 3 years ago. So he's either a little bit younger or around the same age.
About the same age.
My brain refuses to remember the timelines of anything.
Yeah. For me, like my perception of time is so warped. I just
No, mine's
at this point
completely
I just live day to day,
screwed.
man. I
Yeah,
live day to day.
yeah, facts.
Try to appreciate it. As the older I get, the more I try to appreciate things. So
Oh yeah,
the thing
for
is, I'm
sure.
still young. Like I actually feel like healthier and younger now than I probably because I'm exercising more consistently
Right.
now.
Yeah, taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I still have my youth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Not old yet. Yeah, no. When I hit 25 and my friend told me a story about when they hit 25 because he's a few months older than me. And he was like, somebody at my party was like, "You're halfway to 50." And that's just not something that I want to think about.
I was looking at the chat. I appreciate Lex for coming up with this. Ruby, you're a cutie. We love you and your fluffy booty. I'm gonna sing that to her now.
Yes.
That's hilarious. Mark Rusho. Oh, what if because there is a time travel in Prime 4, then Prime will continue on a split timeline where Metroids are running rampant and not extinct? Then Prime games can do whatever they want. I mean, you introduce time travel, a lot becomes possible. That is totally true. I actually do have personally theorized that time travel might be a way to bring back more Metroids. Maybe, yeah, like that might be why Silex is up to something there, trying to get the beyond portal that the Federation has, because he wants to get more Metroids, but the Metroids are mostly extinct. To find to get them, you're gonna have to go back in time to where they were more prevalent. So that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it makes even more sense in the timeline, the timeline placement of where Metroid Dread takes place, because there's only one remaining Metroid. So supposedly, right? We'll see
Okay.
what Metroid 6 brings, but yeah. Anyway, that is it for now. Thank you, everyone. It was a fun stream.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.